On behalf of the Committee on MSME and Startup and the Chairman CA Dheeraj Khandelwal and the Vice Chairman CA Pramod Jain, we welcome to all the participants viewing this budget session for MSME and Startup. With this, we welcome to all the panelists, moderator, and our Vice Chairman CA Pramod Jain. With this, I welcome to our today's session moderator CA Venkatesh Bhatt. He is the managing partner of Astravise Advisor. In that one is particularly looking at the MSME and startup profile. He is a senior management professional with 28 years of experience in the finance professional. And that one is particularly expertise coupled with the operational experience of running business and strategic consulting. If we look at that one is particularly, he has been grounding in top class MNCs and delivering successes in driving that one is financial and operational performance. If you particularly look at that particularly in the MSME ecosystem and the startup ecosystem, he is the regularly, that one is the advisor for the MSME and startup, as well as he is the mentoring the startups and MSME. In that one is particularly, if you look at the central level. With this, we welcome to CA Venkatesh Bhatt, and I am handing over the session to CA Venkatesh Bhatt for further proceeding. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mishra. Let me start the process without much ado. It's my privilege to welcome CA Pramod Jain, Vice Chairman of Committee for MSME and Startups. For most of us, Pramod Jain, sir, does not require any introduction. We have all, in one way or the other, have either interacted with him or have heard him speaking in various forums. He has a wealth of qualifications to his credit, starting with BCom honors. He is a CA, he is a company secretary, and he is a CMA, and in all of them, he has a fellow membership. He is also a qualified lawyer and a qualified information system auditor and a member of All India Management Association. Apart from that, on his professional capacity, he is also an insolvency professional. Then, in the professional side, he has been a significant contributor to our profession of chartered accountancy. He has been chairman of Committee of International Taxation, Taxation Audit Quality Review Board, CSR Committee of MSME Startups in the current year, and the host of other committees over the past couple of years. He is also now a Central Council member. Welcome, sir, to this panel discussion on the budgetary provisions impacting MSMEs and startups. We would like to hear from you, opening remarks for this panel discussion.
Thank you, Bhatt Sahab. The chief guest for today, Mr. Pradeep Peshkar, the member of the National Board on MSME, CA Avinish Mataji, CA Rakesh Jainji, CA Aman Chugji, CA Marathe sir, and Venkatesh ji, sabko mera namaste, and I really welcome you all. This committee, if I talk about, this committee has been formed in ICI for the first time. This is the first year. Looking into this, that yes, the government's focus is there on the MSME and startup, and we professionals, chartered accountants need, because we are a partner in the nation building. So our role has to be specifically more emphasized on how to help, how to grow the MSMEs and the startups. So emphasizing on that, this year itself, we've been able to disseminate knowledge on various opportunities, schemes, finances, other things which are regulatory and other requirements which are required for the MSMEs and the startups. Separate websites have been initiated under the leadership of our chairman, CA Dheeraj Khandelwal ji, ably supported by our secretariat, one for MSME, one for the startup. So both are having a significant importance. And also started a certificate course for the MSME, where we guide our chartered accountant friends that how we can help the MSMEs out there. And on this, and in this process, it was amply thought by this committee that union budget is there. Union budget, which was presented in the Lok Sabha by the Honorable FM Nirmala Sitharaman on the 1st of February 2022. And normally when we talk about chartered accountants, they talk normally on, we say, direct tax or indirect tax or the corporate laws. But what about the MSMEs and the startups? So is there any emphasis or any role which is there on the for the MSMEs and the startup for the MSMEs particular on this session today, for where the chartered accountants can play a significant roles in relation to the budgetary provisions which have been brought. So today's discussion is basically on the budgetary provisions thereof, and in my view, basic view, this budget is at the initial thoughts, I really applaud the Minister of Finance that despite the temptation of being elections in 5 of the states, though instead of going for the populist budget, they went for a very strategic budget in the long term. Emphasizing upon capitalization, emphasizing upon digitization, sustainability and other items, and giving that how it would be helpful for businessmen and ease of doing business and ease of living for public at large. And one of the few things which I would request the panel speakers to discuss upon is that how will the digital currency which is proposed would help the MSMEs or those MSMEs who are currently not regulated or not in the organized sector, but will this digital currency bring them into the organized sector and help them in growing domestically as well as internationally? It could be that way. So it would be a very fruitful discussion. I thank all the participants for joining and hoping to have a great learning session today on a very different platform from the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, not on direct tax or indirect tax, but purely on the focus on the MSME today. Thank you, Venkateshji, and welcome to all the panelists today. Thank you.
We move on to the next item in agenda. Today we have with us someone who has contributed a lot to the thought process in the MSME area, but he's not a CA, and that's the unique value proposition Mr. Peshkar brings to the table. He's going to be the chief speaker today, and after that we have 4 very eminent chartered accountants sharing their perspectives on different aspects of this budgetary provision, covering in detail some of the provisions, and at the same time the macroeconomic impact of these provisions, how exactly chartered accountants and other professionals can actually take the intent of the government in terms of these budgetary provisions forward. And as Pramod Jainji spoke about the partnership in building the nation, the CA Institute has been very, very vocal on this aspect. That also is going to be covered in the panel discussion. So we have a very rich panel discussion following the chief speaker's, our guest speaker's speech. But let me introduce you first, Mr. Peshkar. Mr. Peshkar is an electronic engineer by profession, and he runs his own set of businesses in the area of Nashik and Pune. And they are mostly in the area of manufacturing and infrastructure. And these are the, and so when he talks about any topics on MSME, we should all listen to him because he comes with the ground level information and knowledge on these aspects. He's organizationally quite active. He's a member of the National Board for MSMEs, which is a thought creation body, giving a lot of information and ground level knowledge to various principal secretaries of various industries. All of them come on one forum, and so that's a great thought creation area, and Mr. Peshkar actually contributes in that area. He's also socially very active. He's also politically quite active. So to that, I would say that for many of us, Mr. Peshkar represents a quite well-rounded personality who the intent of really contributing, you can do it in so many areas and all of them actually working together. So over to you, Mr. Peshkar. We are all keen to listen to what you have to say. It will be, we know that it's going to be a mix of Hindi and English. We are absolutely okay. I think, what is important is the thought, not really the language. And, as long as you go into Shuddh Hindi or Chaste Hindi, we should all be able to, manage that. That's absolutely no problem.
No sir, Hindi is most welcome. It is our national language, and हम हिंदी में बहुत I would say Hindi ICI is also now promoting. हम चाह रहे हैं कि हिंदी में जितना discussion हो, some sessions we have held पूरा हिंदी में हमने करने की कोशिश की है. So we want कि हाँ, Hindi is very fine, very fine. Excellent.
Over to you, sir. Can you unmute yourself?
First of all, I will thanks to all office bearers to invite me. Honorable Vice Chairman Pramod Jain ji, Mr. Venkatesh Bhatt ji, Avinash ji Mata, my friend Maheshwar Marathi ji, Aman Chauk ji, और जो भी यहाँ पर ये सेशन में ज्वाइन हुए सभी महानुभाव, नमस्कार। आपने इंट्रोडक्शन तो बहुत अच्छा कर दिया मेरा। एक शब्द में इंट्रोडक्शन हो सकता था, मिस्टर प्रदीप पेशकार इज ऑड मैन आउट इन दिस गैदरिंग, ऐसा भी हो सकता था, क्योंकि आई एम नॉट सीए, वी ऑलवेज लुक टुवर्ड्स सीए एज अ नॉलेज पार्टनर टू रन आवर इंडस्ट्री, and whatever goals we have on mind that can be fulfilled only with the help of chartered accountants. तो ये तो सबको पता है एमएसएमई को कि कहाँ जाना है तो हम सीए के पास जाते हैं। जो कुछ भी है, घर में भी झगड़ा हुआ तो ये नहीं एमएसएमई ओनर फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल टॉक टू सीए। तो ये जैसा हमारा भी है पॉलिटिकल क्षेत्र में, कुछ भी हुआ मोहल्ले में तो पहला तो फोन हमको आता है। तो इसी तरीके से आपका रोल है एमएसएमई डेवलपमेंट में, इतना आसान है, दिस इज वेरी सिंपल। बड़े बड़े भाषा में, बड़े बड़े लैंग्वेज में बात करेंगे तो बहुत सारा रोल है, लेकिन पहला काम ये है कि बीवी से झगड़ा हुआ तो पहला फोन तो सीए को ही जाना है, भैया ऐसा हुआ क्या करें। तो वी रिलाई ऑन यू पीपल एट दिस लेवल, यू कैन अंडरस्टैंड। तो मैं जो भी कहूंगा वो आपके लिए सही इनपुट होगा, इतना मैं तो आपको एश्योर कर सकता हूँ। एक्चुअली आई एम वर्किंग फॉर इंडस्ट्रीज, पॉलिसी मेकिंग, पॉलिसी renewal, this thing advisory, in the advisory capacity to MSME ministry, other ministries also from last 25 years. एक्चुअली सोशल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के साथ में काम करते करते ये पोजीशन तक मैं पहुंच चुका हूं। आप लोगों के से कुछ ना कुछ सीखता हूं, और वॉट एवर इनपुट आई गेट फ्रॉम ऑल एक्सपर्ट्स प्रोफेशनल्स, आई यूज्ड टू ड्राफ्ट इट एंड present it in front of the decision maker, and this is the opportunity I got from Government Ministry of MSME that I am appointed as a board member there. बजट तो हर साल आता है, बजट हर साल आने के बाद भी हम लोग क्या सुनते हैं आज तक कि प्रोविजंस, बजटरी एलोकेशंस, इतना पैसा इसको दिया, उतना पैसा इसको दिया, और इस प्रकार से सब होता है, और बाद में बोलते हैं कि ये सब उसके डिटेलिंग तो सीए से आके पूछना है। तो मुझे ऐसा लगा कि व्हाट इज द बजटरी प्रोविजंस, ये तो बजट स्पीच में भी आता है, हर एक प्लेटफॉर्म पे वो डिस्कस किया जाता है, लेकिन आई शुड कनेक्ट विद द राइट पर्सन और राइट नोडल पर्सन, where we are connected directly, that is chartered accountant, to explain what is the thought process behind allocation of this budget and what result government intend after 1 year, after 2 years, after 3 years. You might have seen from last 7 years, there is a consistency in the policy of budget. यहाँ पर growth, ये डेफिनेशन सामने रखकर ये पॉलिसी डिफाइन की गई है। नाउ गवर्नमेंट इज फोकसिंग टुवर्ड्स जीडीपी सेंटरिंग जीडीपी सेंट्रिक इकोनॉमी से हम लोग एम्प्लॉयमेंट सेंट्रिक इकोनॉमी की तरफ जाना चाहते हैं। जीडीपी सेंट्रिक तो रहेगा ही, एक्चुअली वो सब रिलेशन इंटररिलेटेड तो है ही, लेकिन we talk about GDP less and we should talk about employment ज्यादा बोलना चाहिए उसके लिए। तो ये कब होगा, जब हम लोग उस जो बजटरी एलोकेशन का सही इस्तेमाल करेंगे। और दूसरा ऐसा है कि हम लोग इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर प्रोजेक्ट पे देखते हैं, जब भी बजटरी एलोकेशन है तो गवर्नमेंट के हर एक डिपार्टमेंट टेंडर निकालते हैं, टेंडर पार्टिसिपेट करते हैं कॉन्ट्रैक्टर्स, और वो काम हो जाता है, वो टारगेटेड पॉइंट है। लेकिन एमएसएमई सेक्टर में ये नहीं होगा। गवर्नमेंट इज नॉट द परचेसर, कंज्यूमर आर द परचेसर, टोटल वर्ल्ड इज द कंज्यूमर, और नोबडी इज गोइंग टू गिव यू टेंडर रेडीमेड। तो हमको उस क्षेत्र में सोचना है कि किस तरीके से हमको उस प्रोडक्ट के लिए भागना है। आफ्टर ऑल दिस इज अ सिंगल मैन शो, मोर और लेस एमएसएमईज आर सिंगल मैन कंट्रोल एक्टिविटी। फिर उनको ये कैसे पता चलेगा कि कहाँ जाना है, किस तरीके से हमको गवर्नमेंट ने फैसिलिटेट किया है। तो सिंगल सोर्स इज चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट। तो मुझे लगता है कि ये डिस्कशन से कुछ फायदा होगा। जो भी इंफॉर्मेशन मेरे पास है वो मैं देने की कोशिश करूंगा। हम लोगों ने अभी देखा है कि 6.4 फिस्कल डेफिसिट से ये बजट में हमें दिखता है, जीडीपी का 6.9 है। ये सब तो आपको पता है, आप ही हमको ज्यादा सिखाएंगे। लेकिन इसमें किस प्रकार से कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर में बढ़ावा किया है। कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर 7.5 लाख करोड़ का दिया है, उसमें एग्जैक्टली 35% मोर देन लास्ट ईयर बजट। ये क्यों किया है? तो हम लोग घोषणा ये सुनते हैं, मेक इन इंडिया है, वोकल फॉर लोकल, मेड फॉर ग्लोबल, आत्मनिर्भर भारत। ये सब इंप्लीमेंट कब होगा? व्हेन वी क्रिएट इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर। इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर में बेसिकली फर्स्ट टारगेट गवर्नमेंट का ये है कि गवर्नमेंट वांट्स टू रिड्यूस लॉजिस्टिक कॉस्ट ऑफ ऑल मूवमेंट ऑफ प्रोडक्ट। लॉजिस्टिक कॉस्ट कम करनी है, ये बेसिक लास्ट पॉइंट है। लॉजिस्टिक कॉस्ट कम करेंगे तो एक्सचेंज ऑफ प्रोडक्ट और ट्रांसपोर्टेशन ऑफ प्रोडक्ट, आइदर इट मे बी फ्रॉम मैन्युफैक्चरर टू कस्टमर और मैन्युफैक्चरर टू एक्सपोर्ट, दोनों भी इसमें ये लॉजिस्टिक कॉस्ट कम करने की काफी जरूरत है। इसलिए इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर प्रोजेक्ट में ज्यादा इन्वेस्टमेंट है, हम लोगों ने अभी देखा है। कमिंग टू द एग्जैक्ट एमएसएमई प्रोविजंस, बहुत सारे पोर्टल्स, बहुत सारा ऑनलाइन फैसिलिटेशन इसमें किया है। एक है एमएसएमई समाधान, एक है एमएसएमई संबंध, दूसरा है जेम, तीसरा है चैंपियन पोर्टल। ये सारे हैं। एसएमई डाटा तो अलग से है, उद्यम रजिस्ट्रेशन का पोर्टल अलग से है, ये सब है। तो ईज ऑफ डूइंग बिजनेस में ये नेक्स्ट स्टेप ये है कि गवर्नमेंट वांट टू कोलैबोरेट ऑल दीज थिंग्स, कंबाइन ऑल दीज पोर्टल्स and where we share the data with all these portals। और इसमें ease of doing business के साथ साथ ease of living भी जोड़ना है। इसमें B2B and B2C पोर्टल एक्टिविटी का फैसिलिटेशन इस पोर्टल के द्वारा होगा। ये मनीषा गवर्नमेंट की है। हमने मेक इन इंडिया के बारे में सब सुना है। मेक इन इंडिया की डेफिनेशन एकदम सिंपल है, जो ऑनरेबल प्राइम मिनिस्टर ने हमें कही। मेक इन इंडिया इज अ स्लोगन, बट वी कैन explain it, the prime minister's vision in the sentence like this: whatever you want to make in India। इतना सारा सिंपल है। whatever you want to make in India using Indian resources, it is आत्मनिर्भर भारत। तो हमें ये देखना है कि ब्रेन ड्रेन भी कम करना है। टेक्नोलॉजी भले ही बाहर से हो, लेकिन ब्रेन ड्रेन रोकने के लिए यहाँ पर इनोवेशन को बढ़ावा देना है। इनोवेशन के लिए अटल इनोवेशन मिशन अलग से खोला गया है। अटल इनोवेशन मिशन के लिए लास्ट 5 इयर्स में 10,000 करोड़ रुपए दिए थे। अभी भी आगे मैं बोलूंगा, अभी भी इनोवेशन और R&D के लिए अलग से प्रोविजन किया हुआ है। तो हम लोगों को हर एक MSME को ये बताना पड़ेगा कि आपको आपका प्रोडक्ट साइकिल कुछ 5 साल का होता है, 10 साल का होता है, उससे ज्यादा नहीं होगा। आपको डाइवर्सिफिकेशन करना जरूरी है। तो डाइवर्सिफिकेशन के लिए गवर्नमेंट ने कुछ दिया है, नहीं तो क्या होता है, बहुत सारे MSME जो है एक प्रोडक्ट लेके बैठते हैं, उसका प्रोडक्ट साइकिल खत्म होने के बाद में दे डोंट हैव एनीथिंग एंड MSME में गेट सिक। तो उसके लिए ये इनोवेशन, अटल इनोवेशन मिशन, इंडस्ट्री एकेडमिया इंटरेक्शन जो जरूरी है, तो उसके लिए इंडस्ट्री और नीति आयोग का जो अटल इनोवेशन मिशन है, एक एक इंक्यूबेशन सेंटर्स है, उसको काफी हमको बढ़ावा देना है। तो आपने इसमें स्टार्टअप के बारे में कहा ही है। बहुत सारे लोग ऐसा सोचते हैं कि स्टार्टअप जो है, स्टार्टअप मतलब स्टार्टअप, आई एम एट द एज ऑफ 45, एट द एज ऑफ 50, हाउ कैन बी आई कैन फॉर्म स्टार्टअप, ऐसा नहीं है। आपको पता है लेकिन MSME को पता नहीं। आपके थ्रू MSME को जाना चाहिए कि दिस इज अ सिंपल न्यू आइडिया व्हिच कैन बी कमर्शियलाइज्ड एंड यूजफुल टू द सोसाइटी यूजिंग टेक्नोलॉजी। इतना सारा सिंपल डेफिनेशन लेके हमको MSME को समझाना है। एनी न्यू आइडिया व्हिच कैन बी रजिस्टर्ड इनटू स्टार्टअप इंडिया स्कीम, तो इससे डाइवर्सिफिकेशन को बढ़ावा मिलेगा। दूसरा मैं कहना चाहता हूं कि बहुत सारा MSME सिक है या उनको प्रोडक्ट नया चाहिए, लेकिन उनके पास इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर है, लेकिन 90-95% startups are there, they require infrastructure, they require banking, they require funds। इनका भी कुछ आपकी तरफ से, यू आर द नोडल पर्सन, तो आपकी तरफ से ये हो सकता है कि कहाँ गैप है और कहाँ हम इनको जोड़ सकते हैं। तो मेक इन इंडिया का जब हम लोग देखेंगे तो मेक इन इंडिया में हमने इस बार गवर्नमेंट का फोकस है 60 लाख एम्प्लॉयमेंट। हाउ इट विल बी डन is it will be done through implementation of PLI schemes. PLI schemes is the production linked incentive. आज तक तो हमारे यहाँ सिर्फ कैपिटल बेस्ड इंसेंटिव थे, CLSSI ये सब आप जानते हो। तो अभी ये आत्मनिर्भर भारत का जब से अनाउंसमेंट हुआ तब से PLI स्कीम लास्ट ईयर से हमारे यहाँ लॉन्च हुई। 14 सेक्टर के लिए PLI स्कीम दी है, प्रोडक्शन लिंक्ड इंसेंटिव। इसमें आप देखेंगे सिर्फ मोबाइल के लिए पहले दिए थे, लेकिन उसमें 2 कंपनी से 127 कंपनीज आर रनिंग इन मोबाइल सेक्टर इन इंडिया। इट इज द रिजल्ट ऑफ मेक इन इंडिया एक्टिविटी, मेक इन इंडिया मिशन। तो इसमें तो एम्प्लॉयमेंट तो बढ़ेगी ही बढ़ेगी। देयर इज स्कोप टू टैप MSME मार्केट। इसमें हम लोग देखते हैं कि PLI स्कीम में 14 सेक्टर जो आइडेंटिफाई किए हैं, उसमें 6 सेक्टर तो MSME के लिए है। और PLI स्कीम जब फार्मास्यूटिकल हो या टेक्सटाइल हो, टेक्निकल टेक्सटाइल हो, ड्रोन के लिए भी दिया है। इसमें हम लोग वेंडर को काफी बेनिफिट हो सकता है। उसके लिए फिर आगे जाके हम लोग इसमें जोड़ सकते हैं क्रेडिट गारंटी स्कीम में। तो MSME विल गेट फंड्स फ्रॉम क्रेडिट गारंटी, SME PSC स्टॉक एक्सचेंज से उनको मिलेगा, SME IPO से, और वो दे कैन बी अ गुड वेंडर टू PLI स्कीम होल्डर्स। तो ये सारा इकोसिस्टम डेवलप करने के लिए हमको काफी एम्फेसिस करना पड़ेगा। PLI स्कीम 14 सेक्टर के लिए जो है, तो उसको फर्स्ट टाइम गवर्नमेंट ने ये दिया है कि एक्सपोर्ट प्लान जो बनता था, PLI तो बन गया, प्रोडक्शन बढ़ेगा, व्हाट अबाउट एक्सपोर्ट? तो ये इन लिंकिंग हमको देखना पड़ेगा कि एक्सपोर्ट प्लान अभी सेंटर में नहीं बनेगा। हम लोगों को पता है कि एक्सपोर्ट प्रमोशन काउंसिल है हर सेक्टर के, लेकिन वो पहले बनता था दिल्ली में और वो हम पढ़ते थे नीचे और उस प्रकार से ही काम करते थे। फर्स्ट टाइम गवर्नमेंट इस पोजीशन पे आ गई कि नाउ एवरी डिस्ट्रिक्ट हैज इट्स ओन एक्सपोर्ट प्रमोशन प्लान। दैट डिस्ट्रिक्ट एक्सपोर्ट प्रमोशन प्लान, ऑल डिस्ट्रिक्ट मैजिस्ट्रेट विल चेयर द committee, and stakeholders from the MSME, stakeholders from the industry, stakeholders from professionals, they will and agriculture also, they will give the suggestions and they will make the independent district export plan, और this export plan का implementation MSME के स्टेक होल्डर्स पे करेंगे। उनका जो नोडल ऑफिसर है वो डिस्ट्रिक्ट जॉइंट डायरेक्टर ऑफ इंडस्ट्रीज है, हर डिस्ट्रिक्ट का उनको करना है। तो ये एक्सपोर्ट प्लान जब आपके पास होगा और गवर्नमेंट का ये स्कीम जब होगा तो यू कैन एडवाइज बेटर वेयर टू एक्ट एंड वेयर नॉट टू एक्ट। हमारे इसके साथ साथ जोड़ के हम लोगों को ये पॉलिसी पता है, ये नया स्कीम पता है, ओडीओपी, वन डिस्ट्रिक्ट वन प्रोडक्ट स्कीम पता है। तो वन डिस्ट्रिक्ट वन प्रोडक्ट में हमारे डिस्ट्रिक्ट के लिए कौन सा प्रोडक्ट दिया है, इट इज अ फोकस प्रोडक्ट। ऐसा नहीं है कि दूसरा हमको करना नहीं है। गवर्नमेंट फोकस कहाँ है? अगर मैं शुगर केन प्रोडक्ट की बात करता हूं तो मुझे कोल्हापुर, महाराष्ट्र की बात करेंगे तो कोल्हापुर जाना है, या मुझे टेक्सटाइल की बात करनी है तो किस डिस्ट्रिक्ट में मुझे सूरत में जाना है या और कहीं जाना है। ये 700 districts are identified in ODOP all over India. It is a list is available on portal, web government portal कि हमको क्या करना है हर एक डिस्ट्रिक्ट में। स्पाइसेस कहाँ मिलेगा तो आसाम में किस, अरुणाचल में किस डिस्ट्रिक्ट में मिलेगा, कहाँ से आएगा ये हमें पता है। ये दिस इज द पॉलिसी हैज बीन ड्रिवन by district's own initiative and horticultural data, agricultural produce data which is available with the government. इसमें कुछ गलतियां हो सकती है, सुधार हो सकता है, लेकिन आज के डेट में ये हमें पता चला कि वोकल फॉर लोकल करना है तो इस जिले में क्या बनेगा, इस जिले से क्या मैन्युफैक्चर होगा और वो भारत के हर 703 जिलों में किस तरीके से डिस्ट्रीब्यूट होगा। तो हमारा ओन डोमेस्टिक मार्केट ही उसके लिए काफी है। इससे थोड़ा सा बढ़ता है तो फिर हम एक्सपोर्ट के सोचेंगे। तो एक्सपोर्ट प्रमोशन प्लान भी होगा, ओडीओपी भी होगा। ये इनलाइन करते करते हमको ये करना है कि पीएलआई स्कीम के लिए कहाँ उचित लोकेशन है। तो महाराष्ट्र के 10 जिलों में एकाधिक पैदावार आता है, एग्रीकल्चरल प्रोड्यूस आता है, तो हम लोग उसी का ही पीएलआई स्कीम के बारे में इधर जाता है। या स्किल सेट जो है, या रॉ मटेरियल या इंडस्ट्रीज हब जो ऑटोमोबाइल है, इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स इलेक्ट्रिकल है, जो भी सेक्टर का एमएसएमई नेटवर्क वहां पर है, वहां पर पीएलआई स्कीम का एक बड़ा प्लेयर आ सकता है। तो इस प्रकार से हमको देखना है कि कहां पर हमें एमएसएमई के लिए अच्छा स्कोप मिल सकता है। तो पीएलआई स्कीम से मेक इन इंडिया का मैंने डेफिनेशन बताया और वोकल फॉर लोकल ओडीओपी से कनेक्ट किया था। हर एक स्लोगन एक दूसरे पे डिपेंड है और विजन गवर्नमेंट का ये है कि हर एक प्रोड्यूस, एग्रीकल्चरल हो या टेक्निकल प्रोडक्ट हो, उन दोनों का भी आपको नेटवर्क एस्टेब्लिश करना है डोमेस्टिक मार्केट के लिए। तो हम लोग प्रोडक्शन की बात करेंगे, प्रोडक्शन की हो गई। तो लॉजिस्टिक पार्क 100 लॉजिस्टिक कार्गो पार्क का अनाउंसमेंट हुआ है इस बजट में। 100 पार्क क्यों है? तो टू रिड्यूस लॉजिस्टिक पार्क, और दीज आर द मल्टी मॉडल नेशनल पार्क्स। तो मल्टी मॉडल नेशनल पार्क में 4 पार्क का टेंडर में अलॉट हो चुका है। तो इसमें तो हम लोगों को इस प्रोविजन की तरफ देखना चाहिए कि गति शक्ति इम्प्लीमेंटेशन में हमें ये रहेगा कि ऑल इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर प्रोजेक्ट्स विल बी इम्प्लीमेंटेड इन साइमल्टेनियस मैनर। तो इसके साथ साथ एमएसएमई का इक्वल डेवलपमेंट ऑल ओवर इंडिया हो सकता है। हम लोग फंड के बारे में अगर देखेंगे, सबसे बड़ा चैलेंज तो एमएसएमई के लिए फंड ही है। और बहुत सारे चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट के पास जाने के बाद हम लोग ये सुनते हैं, एज अ बोर्ड मेंबर मैं भी सुनता हूँ और एज अ एमएसएमई ओनर मैं ये भी सुनता हूँ कि वो गवर्नमेंट स्कीम का पैसा नहीं मिलता है, उनके पास ना जाए तो अच्छा है। ये चैलेंज किस तरीके से हमको ओवरकम करना है, इसका सजेशन मैं भी आपसे चाहता हूं, ताकि हम लोग एमएसएमई एक्ट हो या और कोई सुधार हो, उससे हम लोग कुछ गवर्नमेंट के पॉलिसी कुछ चेंज करने में सफल हो। ईसीएलजीएस का काफी अच्छा रिस्पांस मिला, 1.30 लाख लोगों को मिला है, लेकिन इतने सारे लोग हैं तो एमएसएमईज है, उन सबको नहीं मिला। कोऑपरेटिव बैंक के लिए जिस सेक्टर में इंडिया के जिस सेक्टर में कोऑपरेटिव बैंक्स का नेटवर्क है वहां पर एमएसएमई तो कोऑपरेटिव बैंक से बोरोइंग करते हैं, तो उनको काफी दिक्कतें आई। लेकिन इस सिडबी का रोल इम्पोर्टेंट करना जरूरी है, उसमें कुछ काम करने की जरूरी है। तो ECLGS में अभी 2 लाख करोड़ का एडिशन किया है। सर्विस सेक्टर के लिए 50,000 करोड़ रुपया अलग से एक्सटेंशन किया है। ECLGS के बाद हम लोग देखेंगे कि इमरजेंसी वो तो हो गया। एक मिनट। तो ई व्हीकल केस में हर एक सेक्टर में हमें बिजनेस की अपॉर्चुनिटीज को टैप करना पड़ेगा। ई व्हीकल में अभी काफी सारा डिमांड तो दिखती है सामने, लेकिन अभी इम्प्लीमेंटेशन में थोड़ा दिक्कतें दिखती है। लेकिन उसके लिए PLI स्कीम का सोलर मॉड्यूल्स और ई व्हीकल कंपोनेंट्स इसके लिए भी है। बैटरी स्वैपिंग पॉलिसी में किस तरीके से हम लोग बेनिफिट लेते हैं, तो इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर, बैटरी चार्जिंग इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर इंस्टॉलेशन, उसका मैन्युफैक्चरिंग, इसमें हम लोग जा सकते हैं। ये एक बड़ा स्कोप आगे 10 साल में या 15 साल में हमें इसमें ये सेक्टर पे काफी जोर देने की जरूरत है। डिजिटल बैंकिंग ये भी नया एक्टिविटी है। इससे MSME का जो भी दायरा है, तो रूरल एरिया तक MSME कब बढ़ेगा, तब बैंकिंग की फैसिलिटी वहां पर होगी। तो डिजिटल बैंकिंग, पोस्ट ऑफिस बैंकिंग, इसका प्रोविजन है। इसमें डिटेल में जाना नहीं चाहता हूं। तो ये करने की वजह यह है कि हमको रूरल एरिया में MSME की ग्रोथ देखनी है। ये विजन गवर्नमेंट का है, इसलिए ये सारा चीज है। जुरिडिक्शन ऑफ बैंक्स ये खत्म हो जाएगा एक बार डिजिटल बैंक में हम लोगों ने अगर ट्रांसफर कर दिया पूरा, तो इसमें उसके साथ साथ हम लोग फिर यही बोलते हैं कि ये होगा तब होगा, लेकिन इसी बजट में 5G नेटवर्क के लिए PPP मॉडल पे प्रोविजन किया है। ऑल विलेजेस विल गेट द फाइबर कनेक्टिविटी, फाइबर ऑप्टिक कनेक्टिविटी। तो इससे पोस्ट ऑफिस में कनेक्टिविटी मिल गई, पोस्ट ऑफिस बैंक में मिल गई, और ये स्ट्रेंथन करने की जरूरत पड़ेगी। लेकिन we should not depend on only post office bank or digital bank. We can depend on fintech also. There are coming new fintechs are coming for SME funding also. तो इंडिया में भी काफी 3-4 फिनटेक ने अभी इधर ऑफिस भी खोला है, हैदराबाद में है, बेंगलोर में है, 2-3 फिनटेक्स आ रहे हैं। तो they will play in very big role in SME funding। और उनको नेटवर्क मिल गया तो हम लोग रूरल इसमें जा सकते हैं। सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट चीज MSME में हमको इस डायरेक्शन में लेके जाना है। दिस इज द बेसिक चेंज, दैट इज आत्मनिर्भर इन डिफेंस। हम लोगों ने ये देखा है कि 70 साल में, पिछले 60-70 साल में, कि हम लोग डिफेंस के बारे में कुछ भी बात निकालेंगे तो ये हमारा काम नहीं, ये गवर्नमेंट का काम है, ये सुनते आए। और गवर्नमेंट क्या करेगा, तो खुद नहीं बनाएगा, वो इंपोर्ट करेगा। और इसका पॉलिटिकल एंगल छोड़ दीजिए, लेकिन इससे काफी बड़ा लॉस हमारे इंडस्ट्री का हुआ है। वो उसमें पहले तो रिस्ट्रिक्शंस डाल दिए थे कि वो सब सीक्रेट होता है, ये बोल दो। लेकिन अभी आप देखते हैं कि पिछले 3 साल में हम लोग डिफेंस में आईडेक्स नाम का एक अलग से डिपार्टमेंट खोला है। यू कैन गो थ्रू द पॉलिसीज ऑफ आईडेक्स, दैट इज एक्सेलेंस इन डिफेंस इनोवेशन। तो इसमें आपको ये पता चलेगा कि अभी ये बजट में 68% कैपिटल परचेस विल बी फ्रॉम डोमेस्टिक इंडस्ट्री। तो 68% अगर डोमेस्टिक इंडस्ट्री से लेना है तो काफी बड़ा स्कोप है। 5 लाख करोड़ का अगर बजट है डिफेंस का, तो उसमें से 50% बजट है तो कैपिटल परचेस बजट, तो उसका 68%, 1-1.5 लाख करोड़ रुपए का सिर्फ डोमेस्टिक परचेस होगा। उसके लिए R&D की जरूरत पड़ेगी। तो 25% ऑफ बजट इज रिजर्व फॉर R&D एंड दैट विल बी इम्प्लीमेंटेड थ्रू आईडेक्स। रिसर्च एंड डेवलपमेंट के लिए 25% बजट रखा है। दैट इज अटल इनोवेशन मिशन इज एडिशनल टू ऑल दिस बजटरी प्रोविजंस। तो इसमें हम लोगों को ये देखना फिर, लेकिन R&D करने किसके हैं, तो गवर्नमेंट हैज क्रिएटेड एक्टेड ऑन डिमांड क्रिएशन ऑल्सो। डिफेंस का इक्विपमेंट है, टेस्टिंग इक्विपमेंट हो या एम्युनिशन हो, खरीदेगा तो गवर्नमेंट ही आखिर। तो इसके लिए डिमांड क्रिएशन के लिए इंपोर्ट एम्बार्गो का भी इम्प्लीमेंटेशन किया है। फर्स्ट ऑनरेबल डिफेंस मिनिस्टर राजनाथ जी हैड रिलीज्ड one list of 108 products for indigenization. Another 350 products they have announced to indigenize before March 24. तो उसका 22 दिसंबर में कितने करने हैं, 23 में कितने करने हैं और 24 में कितने करने हैं, इसका प्लान पूरा रेडी है। इट इज द अपॉर्चुनिटी फॉर SME टू गो इन डिफेंस प्रोडक्शन. Defense innovation centers are going to be acting big role in this R&D. इसके लिए डिफेंस में जो सृजन पोर्टल है, सृजन, तो सृजन पोर्टल पे आपको हर एक लिस्ट मिलेगी कि व्हाट गवर्नमेंट इंटेंड टू बाय फ्रॉम इंडिजिनस कंपनी, एंड देयर इज द फैसिलिटी गिवन from DRDO, that is testing facilities, easy access for all testing and design support from DRDO. तो हम लोगों को ये एडवाइस करना पड़ेगा, अपने आप कर सकते हैं अपने क्लाइंट को कि you can with your idea you can go through that Srijan portal, you can choose the product and handholding facility will be provided by IDEX. Additionally, testing facilities and design facilities are provided by the DRDO, and once you go through that only idea, then Atal Innovation Mission and IDEX will handhold with that MSME for creating a prototype, and they will fund for 1 crore rupees. Additionally, once the prototype is ready, once he want to go for commercial production, and government will purchase that total, government will sign a MOU with that company, and grant of 10 crore rupees will be given for establishing a manufacturing unit. ये इंडिविजुअल MSME के लिए हो सकता है। तो ये डिफेंस प्रोडक्शन के लिए हमको आगे जाना है। हर एक सेक्टर में, फूड हो, टेक्सटाइल हो या इलेक्ट्रिकल इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स टेस्टिंग और एम्युनिशन का हो, तो इसमें हर एक में डिफेंस को चाहिए, वेंडर चाहिए। तो हम लोगों को इस प्रकार से डिफेंस के इसमें ज्यादा ध्यान देने की जरूरत है। लास्ट में स्टार्टअप के बारे में अगर कहा जाए तो ड्रोन शक्ति स्कीम का इम्प्लीमेंटेशन किया है। एग्रीकल्चर में ड्रोन का इम्प्लीमेंटेशन हो रहा है। एग्रीकल्चर में जो वोकल फॉर लोकल की बात की थी, किसानों की आय दुगनी करना है, तो ये दुगनी ऑटोमेटिक नहीं होगी, ये तो पता है, MSP वगैरह वो सब बातें चलती रहेगी। लेकिन लॉजिस्टिक कॉस्ट करते समय डिजिटाइजेशन ऑफ ऑल एग्रीकल्चरल एक्टिविटीज, एग्रीकल्चरल एक्टिविटी के लिए सब फैसिलिटेशन एग्रोटेक से होगा। तो एग्रोटेक स्टार्टअप के लिए विशेष प्रावधान किया गया है। देयर इज फंड फॉर एग्रोटेक स्टार्टअप्स, देयर इज नाबार्ड का फंड आएगा इसके लिए, और FPC और FPO तो ROC में अभी रजिस्टर कर सकते हैं फार्मर प्रोड्यूसर कंपनी, उनके लिए जो क्रेडिट गारंटी की स्कीम है वो आप इम्प्लीमेंट करके दे सकते हैं। और 100 कार्गो जो मल्टी मॉडल पार्क जो बनेंगे उसके लिए भी इसका काफी उपयोग होगा। तो मुझे लगता है कि ड्रोन का इम्प्लीमेंटेशन के लिए अभी तुरंत स्कीम डिक्लेयर की है। 10 लाख रुपए तक की ग्रांट ड्रोन FPC के ड्रोन के लिए दिए गए हैं। कोई FPC अगर ड्रोन खरीदना चाहती है तो 10 लाख रुपए की ग्रांट उनको मिलेगी। तो ये चीजें इम्प्लीमेंटेशन में हम लोगों को ज्यादा फोकस करना है। गवर्नमेंट का फोकस एम्प्लॉयमेंट क्रिएशन, मतलब गवर्नमेंट के जॉब्स लेना नहीं है। कल ही मैं ऑनरेबल फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर का इंटरव्यू सुन रहा था, तो उन्होंने वही बात दोहराई कि गवर्नमेंट जॉब करनी है, ये मानसिकता की वजह से बेरोजगारी है। सबको क्या करना है, एक तो गवर्नमेंट जॉब, रेलवे में जॉब करनी है या सेंट्रल गवर्नमेंट ने करनी है या कहीं PSU में करनी है। इसके वजह से सबको लगता है कि बहुत बेरोजगारी है बेरोजगारी। लेकिन स्वयं रोजगार की तरफ हमको लेके जाना है, स्वावलंबी भारत की तरफ हमको जाना है। स्वावलंबी भारत अभियान चलाने की बात अभी पूरे समाज में चल रही है। इसके साथ साथ स्वस्थ भारत, इसकी भी बात चल रही है। तो हेल्थ केयर मिशन में टेली मेंटल हेल्थ प्रोग्राम, ये भी इसके लिए भी प्रावधान किया गया है। तो हमें पूरा ई गवर्नेंस पर हमें जाना है। सोशल सिक्योरिटी स्कीम हो या ई गवर्नेंस हो, इसके लिए मैं तो हर जगह एमएसएमई में जब जाता हूँ डिस्कशन में, इंडस्ट्रियल फोरम में, तो मैं सबको एडवाइस करता हूँ कि वी शुड अपॉइंट वन ई गवर्नेंस मैनेजर इन आवर इंडस्ट्री who is the facilitator for all these things for development of own factory business and implementation of social schemes for our staff and workers। तो ये फैसिलिटेशन सेंटर हर इंडस्ट्री में होने की जरूरत है। तो आप भी उनको कह सकते हैं। लास्ट डिमांड क्रिएशन का एग्जांपल देता हूं और मेरे वाणी को मैं विराम दूंगा। 400 वंदे भारत एक्सप्रेस का डिक्लेरेशन यहां पर हुआ। वंदे भारत एक्सप्रेस जो 400 रेलवे तो खरीदेंगे गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया, लेकिन वंदे भारत एक्सप्रेस का खासियत ये है कि देयर इज मैंडेट कि टोटल कंपोनेंट्स शुड बी इंडिजिनस, एक भी कंपोनेंट बाहर का नहीं है। तो 400 पहले 200 का हो गया, अभी 400, मतलब 400 वंदे भारत एक्सप्रेस का खरीदने का टेंडर अभी हो जाएगा। तो हर एक रेल कोच फैक्ट्री हो या रेल के हर एक आरडीएसओ का उसमें आपको देख सकते हैं आप सब। तो रेल मंत्रालय से वेंडर डेवलपमेंट की काफी बड़ी मूवमेंट चल रही है। इसमें ये भी चेंज किया है कि साउथ सेंट्रल रेलवे का कोई वेंडर हो तो वो उसको नॉर्थ के रेलवे के लिए सप्लाई करने के लिए कोई टेंशन नहीं है, क्योंकि दिस इज एक किसी भी एक रेलवे के सेक्शन में आप वेंडर रजिस्टर हो गए तो सबके तरफ आप जा सकते हो, कहीं भी आप टेंडर भर सकते हो, क्वालिफाई हो सकते हो। दैट इज यूनिफॉर्मिटी रेलवे ने की है। तो मुझे लगता है कि रेलवे हो या एग्रीटेक हो या ड्रोन टेक हो या एमएसएमई के पीएलआई स्कीम के तहत आने वाली सभी अपॉर्चुनिटीज हो, इसमें आपको जाने की काफी संभावना है। मैं ये आपसे विनती करूंगा कि ये सारा गवर्नमेंट का फोकस एम्प्लॉयमेंट क्रिएशन, स्वावलंबन क्रिएशन और स्वयं रोजगार क्रिएशन, इसके लिए काफी एम्फेसिस देने की जरूरत है। प्रेजेंटेशन ऑफ borrower is depend on your input। तो आपको इनपुट काफी मुद्रा हो या स्टैंड अप इंडिया हो तो सारा सबको पता है, लेकिन उसमें हम लोग क्या कर सकते हैं। रिसेंटली आई मेट योर national president also, chairman also, and I have requested them to work with in coordination with MSME ministry। तो sir has shown interest and I request once again to your forum also कि MSME मिनिस्ट्री के साथ में अगर काम करेंगे तो मुझे लगता है कि 703 जिलों में जैसा एक्सपोर्ट प्लान बन गया वैसा ही आपके जितने चैप्टर्स है उस चैप्टर के थ्रू गवर्नमेंट के इंटेंशंस और प्लान्स हर एक एमएसएमई तक पहुंचेगा, ऑफिशियली और अथॉराइजली पहुंचेगा। तो नो नीड टू एमएसएमई गो टू दिल्ली। तो ये सारा चीज मुझे लगता है कि ये कहने की काफी जरूरत थी और आपने मुझे यहाँ पर इनवाइट किया। वंस अगेन आई थैंकफुल टू योर चेयरमैन, प्रेसिडेंट, वाइस चेयरमैन जैन सर, वेंकटेश भट्ट सर। आप लोगों ने शांति से सुनेंगे ही क्योंकि सबका तो म्यूट था और मुझे यहाँ आने का मौका दिया, सुन लिया, उसके लिए काफी धन्यवाद। जय श्री राम।
Thank you, Mr. Peskar, for a very thoughtful session. As we anticipated, the insights are from the thought process that has gone behind the various initiatives. One in the budget, as well as even outside of the budget, in terms of the total perspective the government is actually bringing in. The Atmanirbharta is not about just blocking import and putting this duty. It is about creating capabilities inside. And I think given a lot of perspective about PLI plus Gati Shakti combination, how each MSME can actually reach out to a larger market, and it is for us to now to see how do we really take this whole project. And as we were speaking, there were questions coming from participants, and one question was on ODOP, one district, one product. And definitely that is going to be very much interesting for many of the chartered accountants who are not necessarily only in metro, across the country, and all of them are looking at how can they really partner, and definitely these are good insights. Thank you, sir. Some of the points that you made will be now taken up in the panel. Actually, we will be now starting the panel discussion. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Moving on, we are now going to have Dr. Aman Chugh as the first panel speaker. So it's my pleasure to introduce Aman. I take the liberty of calling him by first name. But his credentials are quite impressive, having gained experience working at reputed brands, including PwC, EY, GE, and ICICI Bank in varied profiles of investment banking, corporate banking, derivatives, and risk management. He is presently a consultant and a trainer to Fortune 500 corporates and large consultancy firms and government ministries and associations, industry associations. His views are often covered by reputed print media houses and is regularly invited over national and regional media channels. He happens to be one of the very few doctorates in currency and interest rate derivatives. Our questions are going to be focused on this. Dr. Chugh will take advantage of your expertise. He has also authored the first ever practical book on the currency and interest rate derivatives. He has been honored with the titles, quite descriptive titles, Guru of Financial Market, Father of Financial Planning, etc. He's also right now founder and is running his own fund actually, and he's the managing director and founder chairman of that, and has been a quite well-known speaker across the institute, as well as you would have seen him on TV talking on various topics of interest. So, Dr. Chugh, I think these are the few questions that we thought you are best placed to actually address. Since you are associated with the Fortune 500 corporates, industry associations, and government ministries, we want to hear your views that Indian economy emerging as superpower. What is the main challenge for the MSMEs which is keeping them behind? So another couple of questions are there, but we'll go one question at a time.
Sure, Venkatesh ji. Namaskar hai, Jai Hind hai. And I'm thankful indeed जो Galaxio stars हैं who have at least switched on their cameras. उसमें क्या होता है, एक feel good factor आता है कि सामने कोई तो है सुनने वाला. Well, इसको मैं थोड़ा background पे एक बार लेके जाता हूँ, and then we'll try to understand that MSMEs कहाँ पे इस shape में missing क्यों हो गए हैं in the recent times. In 1991, when the new economic policy emerged, that means the industrialization, liberalization, globalization, जिसको हम LPG की बात भी करते हैं, liberalization, privatization, globalization. Any corporate, any large corporate which was in line with this viewpoint of the government कि जहाँ पे liberalization हो रहा है, privatization हो रहा है, globalization हो रहा है, that corporate flourished. यानी कि अगर आपको सिर्फ in line with the business activity जो government सोच रही है, बस उसके अंदर वो business खोल लो, चल जाएगा. क्योंकि इकोनॉमी को अभी खोला ही है, इकोनॉमी की ताला अभी खोला ही है. सो यानी कि कुछ ज्यादा दिमाग नहीं लगाना, सिर्फ रिस्क टेकिंग कैपेबिलिटी लगानी है. फंड्स अगर आपके पास हैं या अरेंज हो जाएंगे तो आपको सिर्फ एक कॉर्पोरेट खोलना और कॉर्पोरेट चल पड़ेगा, बिकॉज बिजनेस तो आपके पास आएगा ही आएगा. सो majorly skill was not required, education was not required, knowledge perspective was not required. You just had to be in line. And then any MSME which was around those corporates, in those supply chains, emerging corporates, micro, medium, etc., they also flourished. So 1991 में everything flourished, every industry flourished, which was in line with the government opening up, जिसको open कर रही थी. But then what happened was, in the next 10 years, यानी कि by 2000 particularly, यानी कि 10 साल जब निकल गए, एशियन क्राइसिस हमने देख लिया वर्ल्ड ने, .com बबल देख लिया, वर्ल्ड में क्राइसिस देखा. So उसके कारण क्या हुआ? Lot of funds started to come into Indian economy because there was crisis there. There was crisis in US, there was crisis in Asia, etc. So everyone was looking for emerging markets, emerging economies, and India was being one of them. So many large MNCs, they realized कि हमें भी हिंदुस्तान जाना चाहिए, so that this territory we can grab a share of that territory. So many MSMEs, they either came to India, or many companies outside India, especially from in and around the neighboring countries, उन्होंने हमारे यहाँ पे एक ट्रेडिंग का सप्लाई चेन बना दिया कि हम बनाएंगे with the economics of scale and supply करेंगे in the domestic territory of Indian economy. So that means within our Indian economy, the MSMEs tried to evolve out of it, but cutthroat competition के कारण suffocate होने लग गए, especially after 2000s. Then there was another challenge that we became a part of RCEP, Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. And उसके कारण क्या हुआ that although उसमें ये था कि any country who exports उसको 90% एक तरह से टैक्स का बेनिफिट मिलेगा, but then India was not exporting. India was majorly importing. So net crux क्या हुआ, out of those 16 countries, ultimately we were the net buyer from China, whether it was Australia, Japan, Singapore, all these countries we were only importing and we were not exporting, so we were on the back foot. And धीरे धीरे करके वेंकटेश जी क्या हुआ, our manufacturing sector contribution to the GDP, which was 30% then, slowly and steadily in the next 14 to 15 years came from 30% to almost 21%. You can understand, किसी भी इकोनॉमी का जो बैकबोन है वो मैन्युफैक्चरिंग सेक्टर है, और एमएसएमईज मेजरली मैन्युफैक्चरिंग में होते हैं, मगर मैन्युफैक्चरिंग धीरे धीरे करके वो खत्म होने लग गया बिकॉज बाहर की एमएनसीज इंडिया में पेनिट्रेट होने लग गई, और या बाहर वाले जो कॉर्पोरेट जो चाइना एक्सेट्रा जो टेरिटरीज में थे उन्होंने अपना यहाँ पे सप्लाई चेन ट्रेडेबिलिटी बना दी. देन ड्यूरिंग 2010-12 वी कुड सी a lot of hiccups in the economy, especially we were not able to achieve a real GDP growth. So अगर हम ध्यान से देखें, during 2008 till 2012 we have a real GDP figure negative. That means nominal GDP हमारी 9% थी, but अगर हमारा real inflation अगर आप देखें, we used to take WPI, CPI को हम अडॉप्ट नहीं करते थे, होलसेल प्राइस इंडेक्स को हम अडॉप्ट करते थे, मगर CPI को हम अडॉप्ट नहीं करते थे. क्यों? क्योंकि अगर CPI को अडॉप्ट करते तो हमारी रियल जीडीपी नेगेटिव हो जाती, बिकॉज आवर सीपीआई वाज अप्रोक्सीमेटली 14 to 15%. एंड सीपीआई फॉर द काइंड इंफॉर्मेशन फॉर एवरीवन वाज अडॉप्टेड इन इंडिया फॉर द फर्स्ट टाइम इन 2015. यानी कि उससे पहले while the GDP figure was 9%, but there was real GDP which was negative. And उसके कारण क्या हो रहा था वेंकटेश जी, while the inflation was high, but obvious interest rates will also be high. अगर इंटरेस्ट रेट्स हाई होंगे तो कॉस्ट ऑफ फंड्स क्या होगा, हाई. अगर कॉस्ट ऑफ फंड्स हाई होगा तो एमएसएमई अगर कुछ कॉस्ट ऑफ फंड्स पे फंड्स ले रहा है तो वो आने वाले समय में उसको आरओआई उससे ज्यादा चाहिए, तभी वो फ्लरिश कर पाएगा. बट आरओआई तो स्क्वीज हो रहा है बिकॉज एमएनसीज इंडिया में आ रहे हैं, ट्रेड चेन सप्लाई चेन में एमएसएमई स्क्वीज हो रहा है, तो यहां पे आरओआई स्क्वीज हो रहा है और वहां पे कॉस्ट ऑफ फंड्स बढ़ रहे हैं. सो फॉर दैट व्हाट हैपेंड वाज these all MSMEs ultimately became suffocated. And yahan pe ab jo in line with your question, MSMEs focus during this time was to find out alternate scheme of funds. Yani ki they used to be in touch with all sort of consultant jo unko funding dilwa de. MSMEs was not concentrating bhaiya ho kya raha hai, industry inline, the industry vision, the supply chain is changing, jo ki wo wahan pe nahi soch paye. So they were not understanding the vision in line with the global economy, how it was shaping and how the Indian government wanted you to get shaped. Normally, in budget, Venkatesh ji, we look at tax slabs. जो MSMEs होते हैं हम GST slabs देखते हैं, जो इंडिविजुअल होता है रिटेल आदमी जो हिंदुस्तान को होता है वो टैक्स स्लैब्स देखता है, मगर किसी को ये समझ नहीं आता कि बजट का विजन इन लाइन कहां पे है. थैंकफुली प्रदीप जी ने एक विजन दिखाया कि हम एक इन्वेस्टमेंट ड्रिवन इकोनॉमी की तरफ मूव कर रहे हैं, गति शक्ति के थ्रू, पीएलआई के थ्रू. ये जो स्ट्रक्चरल रिफॉर्म है, दिस इज चेंजिंग द स्ट्रक्चर ऑफ द इंडियन इकोनॉमी पर से. एंड इसी में अगर हम लार्ज कॉर्पोरेट को देखें, 1991 में द टॉप 25 कंपनीज ऑफ इंडिया कंट्रीब्यूटेड ओनली 15% ऑफ द कॉर्पोरेट प्रॉफिट्स ऑफ इंडिया. एंड इन 2001 these 20-25 companies, I'm not saying that these particularly, I'm saying top 20-25 companies contributed approximately 30% of the corporate profits of India. And then in recent times, around 2013-14, it was around 60% of the corporate profits were contributed by top 20-25 companies. And now, especially after COVID, at present, the latest data says 80% of the total corporate profits is being contributed by top 20-25 companies. इसका मतलब क्या है? सिंपल है. इसका मतलब ये है, Indian government of late has realized that if India has to become a $3 trillion से $5 trillion, it cannot be done without structural reform. और structural reform का मतलब क्या है? हमें Indian MNCs conglomerates बनाने पड़ेंगे. क्योंकि आप कोई भी देश को देखें, चाहे चाइना को देखें, जापान को देखें, यूएस को देखें, यूके को देखें, हर कंट्री जो फ्लरिश किया है, जो ग्रो किया है, दे हैव इवॉल्व्ड देयर ओन लार्ज एमएनसीज कॉन्ग्लोमरेट्स एंड दैट्स व्हाट इंडिया इज वांटिंग टू डू नाउ. अब वो लार्ज एमएनसी कॉन्ग्लोमरेट्स बनाने के लिए we have to be specific in and around certain industries, जिसके लिए हमने 14 industries identify करी PLI के तहत. क्यों? Because these were those industries जहां पे हम किसी और से receive कर रहे थे. We were importing those goods, technology, etc. And plus, we know that from here these industries will flourish. तो यानी कि हमने सोचा हम बाहर से क्यों लें, और अगर ये फ्लरिश ही करेंगी तो क्यों ना हम ऐसा करें कि हिंदुस्तान के लार्ज टॉप 15, 20, 25 कॉर्पोरेट्स जो हैं उनको एमएनसी कॉन्ग्लोमरेट्स बनाया जाए. एंड अगर ये लार्ज कॉर्पोरेट्स एमएनसी कॉन्ग्लोमरेट्स बनेंगे तो आई एम अज्यूमिंग कि अगर एमएसएमईज उसी लाइन ऑफ एक्शन में रहेगी जो 1991 में किया था तो दोबारा फ्लरिश कर जाएंगी. और अगर वो उस विजन के तहत नहीं रहेंगी सो अल्टीमेटली उनका स्ट्रैटेजिक इनिशिएटिव फ्लॉप हो जाएगा. अब यहां पे वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट ऑब्जर्वेशन इज दैट एमएसएमईज नॉर्मली, इफ वी ऑब्जर्व वेंकटेश जी, दे आर मेजरली इन्वॉल्व इन डे टू डे ऑपरेशंस. जो ओनर्स हैं, जो बिजनेस ओनर्स हैं, वो डे टू डे ऑपरेशन में बहुत बिजी हैं. उनका सारा दिन फोन बजता है, डे टू डे ऑपरेशन, उधर का फंड इधर, उधर का फंड उधर, वो माल नहीं पहुंचा, वो माल खराब हो गया वगैरह वगैरह. सो स्ट्रैटेजिक विजन तो वो ले ही नहीं पाते. जो उनका फाइनेंस हेड है वो फाइनेंस हेड अकाउंटिंग और कंप्लायंस में बिजी है. जो उनका मार्केटिंग हेड है वो मेजरली बिजनेस प्रमोशन में बिजी है. विजन की बात नहीं कोई कर रहा. एंड सॉरी टू से बट लॉट मेनी जो उनके जो ऑडिटर्स हैं पर्टिकुलरली, या जो कंपनी सेक्रेटरी हैं लीगल साइड पे, या जो उनके कॉस्ट अकाउंटेंट हैं, वो भी ऑडिट, टैक्सेशन, अकाउंटिंग में कॉन्सेंट्रेट कर रहे हैं, विजनरीज नहीं. सो आइडली व्हाट इज हैपनिंग इज, if these all people are busy in their own course but no one is giving them the vision which is required. So mujhe lagta hai, and I'll end this question by saying now the time has come that आज तो MSMEs फिर भी operationally चल रहे हैं और MSMEs को लगता है कि कुछ नहीं हो रहा. बहुत कुछ हो रहा है मगर वो इन लाइन नहीं है. अगर वो इन लाइन नहीं है तो उनको क्या लगेगा, इकोनॉमिक पॉलिसीज खराब हैं, जीएसटी आ गया है, सब बर्बाद हो जाएगा, हमारी इंडस्ट्री खराब हो जाएगी. नहीं, इंडस्ट्रीज तो अब यहां से शुरू होंगी, क्योंकि अब हम रीजनल कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव इकोनॉमिक पार्टनरशिप को छोड़ चुके हैं. इन 2020 हमने छोड़ दिया उसको, और उसको छोड़ने के कारण हमने बाकी देशों को कहा है कि हम अब आपको नहीं एंटरटेन करेंगे, हम अपनी इंडस्ट्री को इवॉल्व करेंगे. मगर वो जो 14 इंडस्ट्रीज हैं जिसको इवॉल्व करना है, एमएसएमईज को उसी डायरेक्शन में जाना भी तो पड़ेगा. एंड वो जाने के लिए उनको राइट टैलेंट चाहिए. अब चैलेंज क्या है वेंकटेश जी, राइट टैलेंट एमएसएमई में आता नहीं है. ग्रास रूट पे बच्चा जो है वो एमबीए सीए करके कहां जाता है, मेट्रो, लार्ज कंपनी, मेरे को नेस्ले में जाना है, मेरे को हिंदुस्तान यूनिलीवर में जाना है, मेरे को इंफोसिस में जाना है, मेरे को टीसीएस में जाना है. वो जो पास में घर के पास एमएसएमई है वहां नहीं जाना. एंड जो बड़ा आदमी है जिसने 20 इयर्स का एक्सपीरियंस ले लिया है, वो एमएसएमई के लिए इतना महंगा हो जाता है कि एमएसएमई उसको अफोर्ड नहीं कर पाती. नाउ द टाइम हैज कम दैट देयर हैज टू बी अ ट्राइपार्टाइट शेपिंग, जिसमें लार्ज कॉर्पोरेट के आई थिंक जो दिग्गज हु इज हु द विजनरीज हैं, जिनके इन कंसल्टेशन दीज ऑल विजन जो स्ट्रेटेजिक इनिशिएटिव जो गवर्नमेंट उठा रही है, उन लार्ज कॉर्पोरेट्स के आई थिंक क्लस्टर वाइज पैनल्स होने चाहिए, मे बी इन लाइजनिंग विद द एमएसएमई बोर्ड. एंड वो जो पैनल है उसका डायरेक्ट कोलैबोरेशन होना चाहिए विद सम एजुकेशनल, प्रोफेशनल एजुकेशनल इंस्टीट्यूशन इंक्लूडिंग चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट्स इंस्टीट्यूट एज वेल. एंड वो लार्ज कॉर्पोरेट्स एमएसएमईज को विजन दें कि आने वाले 10 सालों में इंडियन इकोनॉमी किस तरफ जा रही है, कौन सी टेक्नोलॉजी अडॉप्ट करनी है वगैरह वगैरह, कैसे हमें अपनी फाइनेंशियल मार्केट्स डॉलर रुपये की हेजिंग करनी है वगैरह, कैसे हमें ये डिजिटल करेंसी के साथ इन लाइन आना है वगैरह. एंड जब वो उस एमएसएमईज को विजन देगी और साथ में बच्चे को भी वही रेलेवेंट कोर्स करिकुलम दिया जाएगा, तो बच्चे को अगर हम ये कहें कि वन फाइन डे यू गेट अडॉप्टेड इन योर एमएसएमई जो लोकल टाउन में है, तो उसका कई फायदे होंगे. पहला फायदा, जो बच्चा है ना, जो अपने माँ बाप को छोड़ के मेट्रो सिटी में काम करने जाता है इतने प्रेशराइज्ड वर्ल्ड में, एटलीस्ट ही कैन स्टे बैक इन हिज ओन होम टाउन, स्टे विद हिज पेरेंट्स, ग्रो विद हिज पेरेंट्स, ग्रो विद हिज टाउन, बी अमंग्स हिज फ्रेंड सर्कल. इसके कारण पोल्यूशन, वो जो अब प्रेशर पड़ रहा है मेट्रो सिटीज में, वो एटलीस्ट कम होगा. मोर सेटिस्फैक्शन विल कम इन द माइंड्स ऑफ द पीपल जो सोसाइटी में डिटोरेशन हो रही है. एक तो ये सीधा एडवांटेज है. दूसरा एडवांटेज जो है वो ये कि एमएसएमईज जो हैं उनको एक राइट टैलेंट मिल जाएगा. सो दैट मीन्स राइट टैलेंट एट द ग्रास रूट, ओवरऑल विजन एट द टॉप बाय द कॉर्पोरेट. सो दिस विल ब्रिंग अ न्यू सोसाइटी ऑफ अ न्यू इवॉल्विंग भारत, आई वुड से, rather than India.
That was quite, I would say, awesome response to the question that we actually posed. Taking on from where you referred to digital currency and derivatives, we have seen it in our practice and in our clienteles that this is an area where MSMEs don't do well. They don't understand derivatives. And now there is also new talk about crypto. It has been there in this, and there is a very specific budgetary provision, and even Mr. Peshkar referred to that. Would you like to share a few thoughts on this aspect of how MSMEs can actually benefit out of this?
Sure. So my answer will be in two parts, one particularly on derivatives and one on the evolution of this digital currency, uska impact kaise rahega. And pehle hum derivatives ko thoda, in order to understand, the world's GDP is approximately, Venkateshji, $90 trillion. So that means the final value of the goods and services produced in the domestic territory of the world economy in the last financial year has been approximately $90 trillion. Jaise India ki $3 trillion hai, Japan is around $5 trillion, UK is around another 2.8 something, Europe is 15, China is 16, US is 23. So world में $90 trillion का GDP होता है. मगर every year approximately $1,500 trillion का derivatives होता है. अब मैं यहाँ पे derivatives define नहीं कर रहा, मगर आप यूं समझ सकते हैं that $1,500 trillion derivatives impacts the GDP of the world. So that means while all the MSMEs are busy in their own manufacturing capabilities, but जो उनका dollar rupee movement है, import, export, या जो foreign currency loan ले रहे हैं, buyers credit, PCFC, external commercial borrowing, उनका जो hedging अगर वो नहीं करेंगे तो they will be on the receiving end. अब वो hedging करने में गलती क्या करते हैं? They do hedging with their relationship managers, but जो relationship managers हैं वो treasury का part नहीं है. एंड आइडली जो ट्रेजरी के लोग हैं वो बैंक्स में बहुत कम है. इसका मतलब है, जस्ट अ नटशेल, 90% of this derivatives happens over the counter. That means with the banks. So that means the real knowledge of currency and interest rate derivatives comes in the bank's treasury, which is hardly 400 to 500 people in the Indian economy. So that means अगर MSMEs को वाकई में hedging, derivatives करना है, क्योंकि करना तो पड़ेगा, अगर नहीं करेंगे तो ये volatility को मैनेज कैसे करेंगे? And अगर इसको करना है, so they will have to get into knowledge seeking capabilities or get in touch with the treasuries of their banks rather than only the relationship managers of their banks. Ideally, यहाँ पे मैं 3 major pointers बताता हूं. First, MSMEs, they don't understand derivatives. Second point, they do not have direct connects with the treasuries. And third important point is they end up taking forwards in the name of derivatives. यानी कि वो forward hedging करते हैं, उनको options समझ नहीं आता है. And for that matter, उनको लगता है options में हाथ जलते हैं, options में loss होता है, because there was some bad episode which happened in 2008 till 2013, which were some exotic options. They were not the plain vanilla option. मैं यहाँ पे I don't want to be more technical, but आप यूँ समझ लो, अगर हम ऑप्शन को यूज करते हैं फॉर हेजिंग, सिंपल प्लेन वनीला ऑप्शन इन हेजिंग, दैट विल नॉट गिव यू लॉस. बट अगर हम स्पेकुलेट करने की कोशिश करेंगे डेरिवेटिव्स के साथ तो हमारे हाथ जलेंगे. सो दिस वाज ऑन डेरिवेटिव्स पार्ट. डिजिटल करेंसी एस्पेक्ट, डिजिटल करेंसी नीड्स अरोज एंड अल्टीमेटली वो क्या हुआ, 2008 क्राइसिस के बाद a lot many mafia players, they brought private cryptocurrencies. Cryptocurrency has got two things. One, blockchain technology, and one, the encrypted or the cryptographic aspect of a currency. I assume ये इतना बड़ा माफिया होगा because इसका नाम अभी तक जो बिटकॉइन के पीछे जो प्रोमोटर्स हैं वो भी सतोशी है. सतोशी is not the real name. So there are some bunch of people जिनका नाम अभी तक पता ही नहीं है on the public domain. We don't know. I am assuming maybe the large corporates, honchos, जो आप समझ सकते हैं, जो ट्वीट करते हैं कि बिटकॉइन में लगाना चाहिए, कभी डॉज कॉइन में लगाना चाहिए वगैरह वगैरह, एंड फ्यू लार्ज कंट्रीज who wanted to dismantle the fast growing developing economies. I think that was their mafia to bring these type of private cryptocurrencies. Just for example, mining of the cryptocurrency, 60% of the mining was done from China. मगर धीरे धीरे करके क्या हुआ, these all cryptocurrencies जो हैं ये उन्हीं कंट्रीज को भी बैकलैश कर रही थी, इसलिए चाइना ने रिसेंटली बैन लगाया. And China also came up with their own digital currency. And in the same line, India is also coming up with its own digital currency. And I'm expecting the name of our digital currency will be Lakshmi. So slowly and steadily, what I'm assuming is अगर हम ध्यान से देखें, in India we have got plenty of challenge of black money, and as per one report 2012-13 में जो छपी थी उसमें 90 लाख करोड़ का ब्लैक मनी हमारे सिस्टम से बाहर निकल चुका है, मॉनेटरी सिस्टम से बाहर निकल चुका है. अब आप समझ सकते हैं, अगर ये ब्लैक मनी मॉनेटरी सिस्टम से बाहर निकल चुका है इन द फॉर्म ऑफ कैश और गोल्ड और रियल एस्टेट, तो अगर आरबीआई को कोई भी मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी बनानी है, मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी में कितना इंटरेस्ट रेट रखना है, कितना एसएलआर रखना है, सीआरआर रखना है, दैट इज बेस्ड ऑन द मनी इन सर्कुलेशन. मगर मनी इन सर्कुलेशन तो पता ही नहीं है, क्योंकि बाकी तो जेब में बहुत पैसा है ना मनी इन सर्कुलेशन. तो आरबीआई मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी बिकम्स इनएफेक्टिव, इनएफिशिएंट. तो अगर ये डिजिटल करेंसी जिसको हम लॉन्च कर रहे हैं, इफ इट कम्स इनटू एग्जिस्टेंस, दैट विल मेक अ लॉट ऑफ मनी कम इनटू द मॉनेटरी सिस्टम, एंड दैट मॉनेटरी सिस्टम से वो बाहर नहीं जा पाएगा. अगर वो मॉनेटरी सिस्टम से पैसा बाहर नहीं जा पाएगा तो उसके कारण मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी इफेक्टिव हो जाएगी. अगर मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी इफेक्टिव हो जाएगी तो धीरे धीरे करके आई एम एक्सपेक्टिंग India's interest rates to fall in the coming times, and that will help a lot many MSMEs on the cost of funds. A lot many unregulated MSMEs, जो unorganized MSMEs हैं, उनको भी cheaper cost of funds availability मिलेगा. And but of course, with the kind of blockchain technology which will be adopted, this will lead to eradication of lot many hacking issues and the online fraud जो MSMEs को भी कई बार झेलना पड़ता है. This will also reduce the cost and times of the funds of transfer as well. So maybe going forward, my last sentence is, going forward, I expect all the major economies of the world to bring their own digital currency. I'm expecting Europe also to bring e-euro. One find a USB लेकर आएगा. I'm expecting the name of US digital currency would be stable coin. So I'm expecting in the next 2 to 4 years, all these major countries will bring their own digital currency, and जो private cryptocurrencies थे ना, उनका जो रिस्ट्रिक्शन रहेगा, that will only be restricted as a financial instrument रह जाएंगे वो. And so ideally what I'm trying to share is that अगर MSMEs अपनी बुक्स को क्लीन नहीं रखेंगे, अगर MSMEs हेजिंग नहीं करेंगे, अगर MSMEs विजन नहीं मेंटेन करेंगे, तो आने वाले समय में MSMEs के लिए चैलेंजेस ग्रो हो सकते हैं.
Thank you, Aman, for this wonderful insights. Please be with us. There are 3 more panel discussion who are going to present their thoughts. And each of them will possibly cover for another 15 minutes, which will still leave us around 10 minutes for Q&A. And there are many questions coming in the panel, for the panel. So moving on, it is my pleasure to introduce CA Rakesh Jain. He's he's a very senior professional, quite well known, definitely across the Delhi and NCR area, across North, and many people even in South have had the pleasure of knowing him in his non-CA avatars, which is he has been a board member of NSE members of India, ANMI. He's also an author and quite leaders and ladders for organization building, which is mostly benefiting CAs who are in working. They can actually be benefiting out of it. He has been working closely with the institute also, the chief technical advisor, and course on valuation. He has been conducting on behalf of the institute. He has also worked with the government and has worked with the Ministry of Corporate Affairs as a member of Investor Education and Protection, and has contributed in various capabilities across various institutions like CPE, ICA, PhD, Chamber of Commerce, etc. So welcome Rakesh Jain ji, and I have specific questions where I think your insights will be very valuable. ICA has been stressing on this role of CS as partners in progress for the business, apart from providing accounting and technical expertise. How would you describe the role of CA community as government assists the sector through finance availability?
Director who found that he wanted to operate the factory at a very low cost. So he didn't incur capital expenditure, he borrowed, he leased the premises, he leased the plant and machinery, and at a very low capital, he could earn a lot of profit. And because he earned a lot of profit, he was promoted after 5 years. And after 5 years, the new executive director came. The new executive director found that rentals are increasing every year. The plant and machinery is depreciating because nobody is doing maintenance and nobody is spending more money on them. And all of a sudden, he spent around 200 crores in renovating the whole factory and owning the plant and machinery, etc. And his ROI became only 20% because capital expenditure had increased. And then he was demoted because he didn't produce 200% ROI. Instead of that, he only produced 20% ROI. So now this is the whole thing which you have to understand that, and as a commerce or a chartered accountant, you can well appreciate the initiative person that he was investing for long term. He was creating factories for long term, not for short term. His objective was not just get ROI. So first of all, I support all these things, whatever is happening. So I have my own questions which I will raise in due course. The second question Jen Saab raised was that what is the implication of this digital currency for MSME? You see, if we talk about crypto as digital currency, because as far as India's currency is concerned, it has yet to come, it has to take shape. Crypto or digital currency, the way we see, is not backed by any asset per se. Today, if we talk about rupee, at least the Reserve Bank of India says that I promise to pay. There's somebody who's owning that currency. And it is backed by the GDP of that currency. So if the GDP of the country is negative, then currency depreciates. So finally, it is backed by some assets. So we have to really see in detail how digital currency comes, in what shape it comes, what kind of checks and balances are introduced. Because right now, there are no checks and balances. And to me, it is a speculator's bet. In fact, Mr. Ashish Chugh has rightly said that it has been created by some mafias or by the group of mafias, and it is being manipulated also like that only. So it is totally speculative. Blockchain technology is being talked against that, but what is the value of blockchain technology which has been given in the solution? Are they sellable? My answer is no. My understanding is no. So one will have to really see in what shape the currency comes. Digital currency has already come in India in terms of UPay, Rupee, Paytm, and things like that. And to that extent, this will help a lot to MSMEs. And I personally feel that slowly, currency, the actual currency will vanish and digital currency will prevail. In fact, I was hearing Pramod Peshkaji's elaboration on budget, and I really felt that he has covered most of the points. But he raised not many questions also. I would like to address some of the questions which he has raised. First of all, Peshkaji, I would like to thank you as a chartered accountant that you have considered us to be the person who would be called for even a family dispute. That means, and I do believe that chartered accountants is a part of family. He knows all the secrets of the business. He knows all the financing. He knows everything about the business. And hence, he could be very, very important person in promoting. But before I come on that, I will also like to cover up one more aspect of MSME. When you mentioned that bankers generally do not want to lend to MSME and you want to know the reason for that. My view in this is that we now need to really understand the concept of MSME. In sometime 2020, once the limit has been increased, we should create a difference between micro enterprises and mid-sized, medium-sized industry. Medium-sized industry, when we talk about 250 or 500 crore worth of turnover, it's not small, it's fairly large. Now, we need to understand that what is right for medium-sized industry may not be right for micro. Because when we talk about micro enterprises, which a turnover of say up to a crore or so, or a capital of up to 35 lakhs only, or a capital of 35 lakhs only, they are generally run by small. And what Ashish Chugji was mentioning, that most of the entrepreneurs in MSME are doing the work by themselves. These are all micro entrepreneurs, not the medium size. Medium size, there are plenty of people and they have the organization, they can build capabilities, they have spending power, they have power to hire good people, they can spend a lot of time on vision and all that. These micro people will not be, may not be. Hence, my suggestion is that first you should try to get this bifurcation done, and the policies for micro should be different than the medium. Medium is now typically like an industry and will operate like an industry. Small scale has their own issues. And if we talk about employment generation, and if we talk about that people should not think of government jobs only as jobs, they should think of self-employment also. That means we have to give a lot of benefit to these micro entrepreneurs. Micro entrepreneurs, in my view, do not need loans. They need more in terms of contribution or free money, which free flow to them. See, finally, the government is giving for last 2 years the free ration, etc., to the weaker section. Why can't these micro entrepreneurs who are creating jobs for themselves as well as 3 or 4 or 5 people more, they can create more benefits? Like they could be refunded 50% of their GST, or they could be given credit of tax they have paid in the past, and that could be refunded to them. Like when the government in 2020 announced even provident fund which will be reversed or refunded, that was meant mainly for large companies because the ifs and buts were too many. Now, PF is not applicable to micro entrepreneurs in general because they do not employ more than 20. So, what are the specific benefits we are giving to micro entrepreneurs, micro people need to be looked at, and they should be given cash subsidies in some or the other form, which could be as a 50% of the GST which they paid in last 2 years or 3 years, because Corona has really killed them. Who have been affected are the micro entrepreneurs and not MSMEs all. All MSMEs have not been affected. The large, medium-sized organizations are flourishing. And as has been stated, I will say, look, we must understand that economy of scale plays a very important role. Now, if you are talking about a turnover of 500 crore, by no stretch of my imagination is a small turnover. If in India, considering the population and considering the difficulties, on an average, industry makes 10 to 15% return on the turnover. Now, if you're talking about 500 crore turnover and you talk about even 10% as the profit, you're talking about something like 50 crore. Even if you say 5%, it is 25 crore. And plus depreciation, all that means a company making a cash flow of something like 30, 35 crores does not need much of the support. And COVID or no COVID, these big companies are surviving, like the large companies are surviving, and they are expanding. So I would like that what you would like to take up is that try to get this bifurcation sorted out. The second thing is you talked about that you should get some feedback from the people on the ground. You see, we are doing a lot of things on ease of doing business. Intent-wise, they are perfectly fine. But we have to look at the implementation. I'll give you one simple example, which I have noticed. The Provident Fund Department digitalized all their returns, etc., since 1997. And all of a sudden, the clients or the people who have been paying Provident Funds have started getting notices for 20 rupees late payment, interest payment, etc. Because what had happened when they computerized it, suppose the due date was a Sunday, it would compute 1 day interest because you have deposited on 16th or you have deposited the next day. So now we have to see that whenever we are doing digitalization, it should not make the life of these medium-sized organizations difficult. It should really help them. I can totally appreciate that the government intent is clear, but even implementation should meet the intent. If the implementation is not meeting the intent, there is a problem, and that leads to difficulty. You had also stated that you would like to understand this allocation of budget, what this allocation means. Like you talked about 7.5 lakhs crore, 35% going more on capital expenditure. This allocation is going to go a long way. You see, in economics, when we used to study, capital formation is the backbone of any organization's growth. So the government in turn is now supporting, and the government has said that we are going to do this capital formation or we are going to support this, because of which even private enterprises will also put more capital. So what happens is when this kind of capital will flow, MSME segment, now I'm taking MSE, even medium and small and micro also, everybody will gain because the size of their order book will increase and swell manifold. And since government is taking this step, automatically private sector would also need to buy more and more of their things to supply finally the finished goods. Because when we talk about the finished goods, there are a lot of components which goes in that, and component manufacturing also is being done mainly by MSME sector. I would like to talk about one more question which Venkatesh ji has talked about. And my 15 minutes are finishing, so I think I will take this last my answer. That some of the question has come to him about one station, one product. And Peshka ji explained 703 districts. You see, it's a very good visionary step. You see, I will give you in a simple word this concept. You talk about, आप हाले की बात करते हैं. Whenever you talk about blocks, you think of Aligarh. Whenever you talk about this copper work and handiwork, you talk of Muradabad. Whenever you talk of sports goods, you talk about Meerut. Now, what happens? Whenever one product is get associated with a particular area, all the ancillary units automatically get developed in that. I will give a practical example of this is that how in 1985, when Maruti came, the total hub of component auto ancillary has developed in Gurgaon because all people mostly have come near there and they started developing their ancillaries. And today, we are one of the major players in the international market in automobile industry in terms of component supplies as well as in terms of vehicles. So this is a very good concept if this could be utilized. Now, another question, Venkatesh, you asked me was that I'm taking 1 minute extra because I think my talk will not be complete if I do not talk about this, that how this kind of things can help chartered accountants. You see, we must understand. In fact, when I was hearing about your profile, Venkatesh, you mentioned, it was stated that you are doing as a strategic advisors to various corporates and all. We need to really understand the chartered accountants' original role of auditor or tax consultant needs to go away. We need to really understand, like Peshka ji has said that chartered accountant is looked everywhere. Why can't we come one day CFO or 2 days CFO in a month? Because as Mr. Chugh has said that experienced people and capable people become very expensive and cannot be afforded by MSME segment. But they can afford the same person for 2 days in a month. Vision and policies does not come every day. For that, a very limited amount of time need to be spent. So people could be hired for those things and there they could be paid handsomely. The people need to understand in MSC segment or industry segment is that goods advice is always expensive and they have to pay for advice. In fact, our industry is not used to paying advice, which slowly they need to understand. If they want. Secondly, so much of knowledge is being given by the government through various portals as well as the budget. Chartered accountants are well versed to understand them. If they can advise their client how they can increase their business. So instead of, as Mr. Chugh said, that the chartered accountants need to play the role of visionaries and need to assist the clients in terms of improving and growing their business, not only in doing their accounting and all that. What will happen is chartered accountants will get new roles. So everybody needs to do introspection. In fact, I will take one more second in quoting Mr. Peshka when he said that एक MSME एक product लेता है, उसकी life cycle खत्म हो जाती है, and after that he becomes sick. Now it is the same thing happening with chartered accountants. They have taken one product, accounts, audit, and taxation, and slowly taxation is getting out of parameters are changing of practice. The knowledge still required is changing. Even for audit and all, the infrastructure and knowledge level required is different. And we are not changing. We are still operating the old way. So we need to change ourselves with changing time. And these budget deliberations are a very important parameter. In fact, government is going all the way to make budget not only as a tax or increase measure or technical policy, budget as a policy which will define the growth of the nation. So I think if we take this into that view, we will find the answers of all the questions. Thank you very much. I will not take much. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Rakesh ji, for those very insightful points. Some of them will revisit later as part of the questions in case the time permits. It is now my pleasure to introduce CA Avinash Matta. Mr. Matta is a BCom Honours graduate from Sriram College of Commerce as well as a fellow member of CA. He has one of the oldest firms in New Delhi, formed in 1983, AVA and Associates, and has been rendering various professional services as a CASA, and he also holds certificates in environmental economics, IND-AS, and insolvency professional and arbitrator. Apart from that, he has very varied attainments in the past and present through his illustrious career. He has been independent director of companies. He has worked closely with the institute on various study groups as a technical director, and beyond the institute, even in terms of the participating in government and other socially important initiatives, has been on the forefront. He has been president honorary of Arogya Foundation and has been public representative in the Interconnected Stock Exchange of India Limited, and has been past president of quite prominent organizations in the area of finance. So with this, let me welcome CA Avinash Matta. Sir, the questions that...
Avinash Mata. His name is Avinash Mata.
Avinash Mata. Avinish Mata. Okay, I'm extremely sorry.
Never mind.
Okay.
No, see, my name from my childhood has been misspoken, mispronounced by my teachers also. Never mind, except for my parents. That's okay.
So I think I misspelled here. I really sorry on the Avinash.
Absolutely no problem.
Mata. See, the question to you is: there has been so much focus on the government on MSMEs and startups for last 2-3 decades. Several prominent speakers talk about it. There are several initiatives aimed at supporting the sector. And current year budget, in a way, is only continuation of the series of these reforms and initiatives. How do you link these initiatives? Some linkages were talked about by Mr. Peshkar, but any other insights that you can actually give will be very important. And one more question related to the thing is that this budget, while we have all been talking about the visionary digital focus there, infrastructure focus, what do we see as an ordinary, average students of the economy, economic growth, employment, MSME sector, revival? These are all things that we have heard actually in the last few days in various seminars. What are the macroeconomic implications of these provisions? I would request you to address these.
After Peshkar Saheb's and Aman Chug's deliberations, added with what my elder brother Rakesh has just now spoken about, there is very little left for me to deliberate upon. So what I'll try to do is, whatever have the balance left over, I'll try to, and frankly, my practical insights into the areas which I have dealt in the past, would like to now share with all of my friends here as well as the audience, whatever are listening to us. See, when it comes to the budget, Peshkar Saheb has very well, taken care of each and every aspect. So my whole of my, deliberations is already, kept, so that's okay. Now, what has happened is, Mr. Bhatt, see, I have grown the city of Delhi. And it used to be hub of small scale industries. A lot of areas, if people from North India, they must be knowing about Narayana Industrial Area, Okhla Industrial Area, Mayapur Industrial Area. These were the hubs where small scale industries were functioning very well. And they were large scale employment generators. And people who try to migrate from Eastern UP, or for that matter, Bihar or West Bengal, they used to find reasonable good employment there. And we have seen from couple of my clients who were into, say, for example, garment trade, the people who were working there as tailors, cutter masters, they came here from Bihar and Eastern UP. They had the livelihood. They created homes for themselves. Try to understand. A person, now we find whosoever migrate to Delhi, they create only slums. This is a sad state. And, Aman spoke about the vision, strategy and vision. I was really mesmerized. I do not want people of my countryside come to the cities and stay in unhealthy conditions. He has taken my heart. Aman, I'm really appreciative of you. You spoke about kids staying back at the native places, taking care of their own livelihood, as well as their parents, and they grow together. This is what vision we want in this country. I happen to be associated with a social enterprise, not enterprise, it's a social organization which is called Ekal Vidyalaya Movement, Ekal Abhiyan. Now we organize almost 100,000 one teacher schools, which is non-formal schools all across the country, which is into deep rural areas. And when I visit those areas, I mean, I'm really mesmerized the kind of talent the people have there. Now that talent has to be, streamlined and mainstreamed into the nation building. This is what we aspire in this country. So my hats off to you as well as Pradeep Peshkar Sahab, who really try to brought in this the whole of this focus into. And now when you spoke about the vision, I'll call the vision of the government. Leave aside the politics, leave aside my political leanings or whatever. Not the point beside. The tone at the top. For example, in the corporate side, corporate governance, we speak about the tone at the top. Now, if the tone at the top is such, the whole of the organization, they try to drive into that direction. This is what probably this budget and this government is trying to visionise. Rakesh ji mentioned about why there are nothing. The 5 states are going to be polled this year, and there's nothing about the goodies never have been given. So what we want in this country. So, for example, you also mentioned about going away with the manufacturing side of the industry, and people become traders. The people who had small scale industries in the smaller hubs of city like Delhi, they shifted to either to the real estate investment or they shifted to the trading side. In the process, those industries, small scale industries, which used to have 20, 25, 40, 50 people as their employees, they converted into banquet halls. And this is really sad state. We need to rejuvenate and have to have that culture of manufacturing, innovation, and try to add value to the material, raw material, be it my labor, whatever goes into the production of a particular product. So we need to really go back to those times, and only the MSMEs and the cottage industries, they can bring survival to the whole of our large population. Now, if we speak of the tone at top, Amrit Kal. Now, if we speak politically, we may say, ये तो सब जो है वो politics की बात करते हैं, अमृत काल, जुमले वगैरह आ गए. Forget about that. What we want is we should have an India which is prosperous and which is happy, isn't it? Now, Amrit Kal really means that everything is having pure, trustworthy, and we should have the kind of homogenized and harmonized, atmosphere and conducive community building. This probably will see. I am very hopeful as a very deep, hardcore optimist. I see that there are good times to come. Gati Shakti. We remember there used to be a time when various departments of the government, they used to have their own way of working. There was absolutely no coordination. The whole of resources which goes into a particular project may not be giving the best outcome. So the Gati Shakti tried. It is the vision of the Prime Minister is that whole of these departments, they should have a synchronized, comprehensive, and analytical type of efforts which goes into a particular project implementation, so that the best possible optimum outcomes can be become on more than the minimum wasteful expenditure should be there. In the process, what we see that Peshkar Saab also mentioned about the multimodal kind of the development which is going to happen, giving best possible logistic solutions to the product development in various clusters across the country. Along with that, when the infrastructure is developed, and see the vision of the government, infrastructure, then your digitalization, which also has education, edtech, fintech, agritech. Now, education, digital universities speak about. Then in agritech, we want the farmers should have a large income. I am also working on a project in an alternate investment fund where we are trying to give the capital investment into the fintech, the agri-tech industries. Now, agri-tech is such a field. Hydroponics, the seed development, the best kind of inputs which goes into the soil, rejuvenation of soil health. Now, these are the kind of industries where we have a great, the opportunities into the development sector of the agriculture. Similarly, fintech, we know these were all small kind of startups like Zerodha. See the way they have developed now. They have almost unicorn in their own self. And when all these sectors develop, who are going to give the inputs, resources come from youngsters, the people who come out of the college and also from the technical institutes who give their best possible and creative inputs in development of these kind of initiatives. See, the government also now speaks about the revised drone policy. Today morning, I was reading that in the Delhi police commissioner, he is trying to use drone for the security of the city like Delhi. All kind of these developments need to have inputs from the technological guys. Who are these people? All smaller units, small setups. Similarly, on the health sector, if you see, we a couple of years back in my Arogya Foundation, which Bhatt Sahab just now spoke about, we started telemedicine. So who gave us the telemedicine solution? Again, a very small startup, isn't it? Now, the vision of the government is trying to assimilate and interlink whole of these kind of ecosystem. Ultimately, what is going to happen is that once all these systems and inputs are integrated, the best use, highest and best use outcomes we are going to get. When it comes to current budget, Peshkar Sahab has already spoken about it. I need not repeat it. The kind of budget allocations which has gone into the MSME sector is almost 33% higher. So accordingly, what I feel is in the times to come, though there may be some kind of irritants. For example, if I talk about my personal experience, there is still a lot needs to be done on the changing mindset of the people who are implementing these kind of initiatives. CDB, for example, we were working with CDB on certain projects. Now, whenever we went to them with a particular proposal, they wanted to ask, despite the fact this was a risk capital initiative of the CDB, they wanted the entrepreneurs to have some kind of a collateral bringing along with the proposal. I mean, this never happens. Once we speak about the risk capital and you want a collateral from an entrepreneur, probably we need to, somewhere on the policy implementation side, we need some kind of the kind of directive and the guidelines from the government where all these issues can really be streamlined. Interlinkages, the government has started Udyam. I was surprised to read through Udyam, because you don't require no document, only Aadhaar and PAN is required. Now in Udyam portal, even a street vendor can get himself registered as MSME, and the bank credit can be made available to him at a concessional rate because it comes to the priority sector. Accordingly, the people like me, especially who are on the almost 60 plus years, who have more, we have more emotions going into the social side. People like us as professionals should try to give this kind of information whosoever we come across. For example, if I'm going for buying something from a street vendor, informally I can ask him, I can guide him, कि भैया तुमने कुछ ऐसा किया क्या, नहीं किया तो आप कराइए. Similarly, eShram is again such a portal which is being now linked with Udyam as well as eShram, coupled with the National Employment, another initiative, National Employment Career Services. And these are interlinkages which we as professionals need to disseminate to the common man. So I think there is a lot to be done, and which is already being done by the government. We have our own roles as professionals. We need to guide our, not only the clients, but a common, as I mentioned about street vendor, also our articles, that the people who come for to us for training, we should be going beyond our core area of making them read through the taxation, audit, company law and all that. These kind of social issues and the social initiatives being taken by the government or by anybody, I mean, we should be disseminating to them, so that there can be a comprehensive, uniform move forward for including everybody in the development process of the country. With that, I'll close here. I would like to have the views of my other co-speakers, so that I should be more gainful in having insights into more issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I will. It's my pleasure to introduce today my co-panel speaker. This is a firm that is having 150 members in the area of Pilpri and Chinchwad, Pune area. It is my pleasure to introduce Mr. Marathe. It is triple M Marathe. And Mr. Marathe has several distinctions to his credit. He is a qualified CA, as well as he has several certifications to his credit. And he's also a well-known speaker on MSME matters in various forums. And is also supporting Institute in its various initiatives. Mr. Marathe, it's our pleasure to welcome you to this forum. While a lot of topics have been covered in terms of the larger direction of the budget and what the government intended, and I think while Mr. Peskar has covered very, very specifically PLI, Gati Shakti, the innovation part of it, there were a couple of initiatives that that have been a very highlight of this this budget. Would you like to? I mean, you are picking up with, as a last speaker here what has not been covered, but RAMP and GEM initiatives. These will be a good insights if you can actually share with the participants in today's session.
Sure. Thank you, Venkatesh ji. Namaste to all. Really a learning experience, in fact, to hear all the stalwarts who spoke before me, especially Pradeep ji and Avnish ji in the end. He spoke about that Ekal Vidyalaya also, really inspiring. So as you said, Venkatesh ji, I'll be more on these initiatives as enablers. In fact, in last 2-3 years, what we can see in terms of government initiatives, in terms of launching these few digital initiatives like GEM, the Samadhan portal, or even for that matter, the TREADS initiative. So kind of 3 more things, or say 3 more initiatives or enablers or strengthening of few of them. What I have noticed in this budget, I'll be speaking about them. First is, in fact, Avnish ji in fact touched upon it, was this interlinking of these 4 websites. Now, when I'll be presenting my views, I'll be even opening few questions like what can be the purpose of this? How will it really benefit the SME in coming days? Like, for example, this interlinking of these 4 websites. Now, Udyam, we all know, revised form of Udyog Aadhaar, a real ease for MSME registration. Especially after opening the trading sector also for registration under Udyam, maybe for that limited purpose of taking the advantage of being the priority sector. But Udyam is definitely going to play a great role for MSMEs, especially in relation to claiming all their rights, especially in terms of claiming their dues. Like they're claiming their being MSME and all their rights in terms of the credit period, definitely. But all other 3 websites like this eShram, NCS and ASEEM are more of employment or registration of the skilled and unskilled labor force kind of. So how will it really help the MSME sector going forward is the real question. While speaking on the budget, the finance minister said these portals will now perform as portal with live organic databases, providing G2C, B2C and B2B services. And these services will relate to credit facilitation, skilling and recruitment with an aim to further formalize the economy. What comes to my mind is eShram is more of a database of unorganized workers. NCS is a kind of a employment portal, National Career Service, and ASEEM is about skilled employer mapping kind of a portal. But these three employment related portals on the one hand and Udyam on the other hand, so what is there in the mind of the government? In fact, in last 2-3 days, I tried to interact with few of the concerned people, even from the ministry. In fact, Pradeep ji can throw some light on this. Is it something where the labor welfare in the mind of the government? Is it about labor reforms? But because we already have these labor codes that are coming into picture now. Is it about national employment database creation? Because on many platforms, the government itself has accepted that they don't have a kind of end-to-end employment database kind of key. They cannot tell the nation what is real unemployment ratio today. Or is it about just the ease that they are going to create? Ease creation is really one mission on which this government is definitely working. Or at the same time, one section comes to mind of income tax is section 80JJAA. Just to mention it here, because this is one section which I have seen in last 4 or 5 years, 3 times this section was amended, and this section is promoting the on-roll employment of these laborers, more the employment on the role of the entity, more PF registration, more ESI registrations, and the assessee, the employer gets a added advantage of employment allowance kind of a deduction. So is it about creating a formal employment environment? Is it the purpose of pronouncing this? This is one thing which we as professionals also should follow up in coming days, so that its real advantage, the intention is taken to the last person for whom this initiative is. Secondly, there is one mention about this RAMPS program, the Raising and Accelerating MSME Performance Program. Now there is an allocation of around 6,000 crores, which will be spent over a period of 5 years. This will help the MSME sector become more resilient and competitive and efficient. So what is this RAMPS? What it is all about? So when I tried to dig into details, so what I find is RAMP is an intervention designed on the basis of a committee which the RBI had formed, and it gave a report in June 2019, recently. In fact, just before COVID, this report had come, which recommended regulatory, financial and implementation reforms, as well as the firm level access reforms to provide targeted interventions to MSMEs across recognized challenge areas. Now here again, one more thing which comes to my mind is making policies is really great. Lot of policy initiatives we see in last couple of years, 4 years, 5 years. But its implementation is always a question which Matta sir also very recent in his speech he mentioned. 3 things very specifically come to my mind here is a scheme called Z, Zero Defect, Zero Effect. Have we heard about it in last 2 years? We heard about it in say 3-4 years back. There was a great buzz about it, but in last 2 years there was no allocation, there was no fund allocation to this particular scheme. Take, for example, lean cluster concept. The lean cluster is again a great concept which focuses on quality of production, the discipline of a particular manufacturing setup. This was the second such initiative which is real need of the industry, but again no allocation was there in for this particular initiative in last 2 years. And third is a CLCSS is a recent example. Say post April 2020, there is no allocation to CLCSS also for general category. In fact, this scheme is now extended to even service sector, but for a particular SC/ST category only. But for general category, CLCSS there is no allocation. Just this came to mind. Just to highlight here is those very, very important schemes which really promote good disciplined manufacturing, the technology upgradation, or zero defect in the manufacturing. There was no allocation to that. What can be the reason? But now through ramps, maybe this allocation is coming back, and this is proven based on one paper which this government publishes with the budget documentation only, called as Outcome Output Budget. In fact, from financial year 17-18, this particular initiative that started, which gives in a tabulated form key any scheme that is say pronounced by the government as part of the budget, what is its output that is targeted, and what are the outcomes that are seen out of this particular fund allocation. So for example, in 22-23, the RAMS initiative has got around 723 crores of allocation. And there are on 5 parameters, the output will be measured. And in a tabulated form, this is given as part of budget documentation only. And on 3 parameters, the outcome will also be monitored. Like, for example, take specific example, how much of increase in productivity of MSME is one of the outcome that the government is going to monitor out of RAMS, out of this 723 crore that they'll be spending. And the indicator for this is the average firm turnover in rupee terms. Secondly, increased industrial performance, increased institutional performance. And while monitoring it, the indicator is MSME federal scheme outreach in participating states. So in number of lakhs. So how many MSMEs are participating in this? And then third to mention was expanded and more inclusive market service demand. And there the parameter, the indicators are the usage of platform and online services, numbers in crores, and access to MSME finance via trades. So even like this trades is a around 3-4 year old initiative. If you just inquire with our professional friends, whether MCA has started issuing notices for non-compliances with the trades related circular which the MCA issued in 2019, if I'm not wrong. Like every entity which has a turnover of more than 500 crores has to pay its MSE suppliers through trades platform only, has to register on trades, and it has to pay through trades platform only. So what is the further action from the MCA on implementation of this notification? So answer is, as of now, MCA has just started sending notices inquiring about whether you are registered or not. No further action is seen till date, but in coming days, definitely if the government is monitoring the outcome of the scheme, outcome of the allocation also, then all these things should also definitely start. Finally, the third initiative or kind of enabler which I'll be speaking is about the some initiative taken on government procurement also, where the government says the provision for payment of 75% of the running bills mandatorily within 10 days for engaging settlement of dispute through conciliation. This has already started. What is new here is for transparency, reduced delays, complete paperless end-to-end e-bill system to be launched. All central ministries for their procurements have to use this particular platform only. Suppliers can submit digitally signed bills online and track the status. This is what is new. That's what the government wants to say, which is really welcome. When we say digital initiatives certainly reduce for we as a nation, it definitely helps us reduce the corrupt practices. So as of now, it is about the central ministries. Think of a day when it comes till the gram panchayats, till the last public office, then it will definitely make the difference. I'll not talk much upon this, what are our real roles, our role as a chartered accountant in really making this happening, or really taking it to the last government office. We really have a great role to play. We can suggest a lot of such reforms also as part of our R&D in this particular area. Lastly, as part of government procurement only, one great initiative again has to be studied is to reduce the indirect cost of suppliers and works contractor. Government says the surety bond instead of bank guarantee. That is what is the new initiative. And IRDA has already issued the framework for issue of surety bonds by insurance companies. So here it will be an insurance policy that is bought by the supplier, and it is definitely is going to reduce the cost of say funding which otherwise the supplier incurs in terms of availing the non-fund limits from the bank. It will reduce the cost, and very important, it will also reduce the dependence on bank limits. For example, for any contractor, for a big tender-based business, you require a lot of non-fund limit. But if this the new IRDA guidelines, if on the surety insurance contracts have been, in fact, the guidelines have already come in January 2022 only, even before the budget, and now we suppose that really this will help the SMEs reduce their cost in terms of the non-fund limits which they use for especially the contract-based business. So friends, these three things I wanted to mention, in fact, as part of my thoughts, wherein these are enablers where we need to study a little more to understand its real intention and how it can really help the last person, that is MSME, in further strengthening its business. So that's it, Venkateshji.
Thank you. As we come towards the end of this, we have a few questions. But just I wanted to share one perspective that I was actually sharing with my clients as my part of consulting. Many MSMEs, when they come and meet us, I keep quoting one popular joke of a devotee going and praying to the God every day very fervently, saying, please allow me to win the lottery, tomorrow, God. So after this goes on for 6 months, finally even God gets, exasperated, and he becomes pratyaksh in front of the devotee and says, please go and buy the lottery ticket first. So if you look at today, between micro, small and medium enterprises, we have more than, our estimate across the country is around 6 crores of units of units are there. And if you go and check today, how many registrations have happened. In the old scheme, it is 4.5 crore. And in the new scheme, it is just 34 lakhs. Okay, so what does it mean? It means that while we are coming with the new schemes, and the point that you made, Mr. Marathi, is very valid, that are the old schemes. What happened to those schemes? Why are we not really pushing for that implementation? While new schemes are very well thought out and welcome, implementation is what is important. The implementation is also linked to VCS actually asking our clients to first participate. Digital mindset, we talk about digitalization. I would say first is to know digital mindset starts with registration with the right department, so you become digitally visible to the entire country. So this is a very simple thing that we need to actually ask all our MSME clients. And obviously the point that seniors made, that a lot of these MSMEs are nothing but micro enterprise, and they are actually the ones who have also suffered the most in COVID. And most of the time, we realize that they don't have the right kind of an advice. Their advisors are as ill-equipped to advise as they themselves are, and that actually is part of the problem also. And CS have a significant role to play. First, to understand the schemes, and then to figure out what is the right way for the MSME to go about actually utilizing and becoming aware of even the available schemes in the first place and work on it. What the point made is absolutely true. The respective departments need to move faster, need to really put things in place, because intent at the end of the day from the top, the communication is very clear. The government intent the intent-wise, no one can actually doubt on the kind of an action that have been taken place. However, सबके साथ का मतलब यही तो होता है कि बाकी सब लोग हैं वो भी अपना काम करें. So we will all have to contribute our part of it. The departments have to do their part. Then only we'll be able to move forward. And that's definitely is a very, very relevant point to be added in the context of today's discussion. A few questions are there. We are almost at 2:00. So I have put it in the group. Would you like to answer some of these questions? I will leave it open to the panel to pick up the questions which they would like to address. Rakesh ji. So if there is any specific question that I have put in the group, would you like, shall I?
There is one question on RAM. How much is going to be on capital expenditure and the revenue side?
Yes.
See the kind of concept which a ramp is going to bring in, all is expected to be on the revenue side. There is no allocation on the capital side. This is just for the information of the seeker.
Thank you. Aman, would you like to have go at the answer question that is specifically directed to you?
I think बहुत जरूरी ये समझना है that MSMEs will not be losing their independence. It is about MSMEs will be absorbed in the full-blown जो एक तरह से conglomerate पैदा हो रहे हैं. Because earlier there were no conglomerates altogether. We did not have companies into Fortune 500 companies of the world. So MSMEs कभी वहाँ flourish करती थी, कभी वहाँ flourish करती थी without the vision, and most of the MSMEs they actually became traders. मैन्युफैक्चरिंग तो खत्म ही हो गई थी. सर्विसेज के लिए स्टार्टअप्स आए तो वो MSMEs करती नहीं है. सो प्राइमरीली आई थिंक दिस इज द गोल्डन अपॉर्चुनिटी टू बी इन द लाइन अगेन. सो rather than thinking to become independent out of the system, आप यूं समझ लो that we will be independent within the system, being a part of that integrated chain.
This of interdependence rather than only dependence versus independence. Dr. Mishra, I think we have answered most of the questions. The rest of the questions have been either in one way or the other addressed actually in one of the sessions. So specific questions on the scheme part of it, I think we need to address separately. You can definitely write to any of us and we can actually respond to that separately. So over to you, Dr. Mishra.
I would also actually like to thank each and everyone. This session was actually really mind-opening, I would say, because normally if I talk about chartered accountants, they talk about direct tax and taxation laws and corporate laws and even sustainability. Now we have started CSR. But yes, talking about from the MSME point of view, this budget, I really thank each of the panelists out here, including our chief guest, Pradeep Pareshkar sir, and then of course, Aman Chugh stole the heart away of everyone by talking about few things which are very, very important. And Rakesh ji bringing along with the experience, what he shared was really very, very delightful. Avinish Mata Sahab again talked about the realities, giving the examples out here and talking about the various things which was there. And Marathe Sahab, always a great contributor to this committee. He has been a regular contributor. And thanks Venkatesh ji for really moderating the whole session very, very nicely. Thanks a lot to each and everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Marathe.
Thank you.
On behalf of the Committee on MSME and Startup, we are thankful to each and every dignitary present over here. And we are also thankful to our participants for their presence hearing on that one is particularly the very much that one is application oriented topic on the budgetary provision of MSME and startup. With this, we conclude the session, and we are that one is thankful to spearhead the committee on MSME and startup for putting it a very beautiful topic towards that one is for a virtual CP meeting, and we are very much thankful to the entire committee for that one is particularly holding it this virtual CP meeting. With this, we conclude the virtual CP meeting. Thanks to all.
Thank you. Yes.